Hello, welcome to Sassy Saturday. Alex, I really feel like we need a Sassy Saturday theme song countdown.
I know, but I'm horrible with editing and technology. You're the better of it than the two of us.
And that is a sad state of affairs. You're younger. You're supposed to be better at this stuff than I am. That's like, you have one job, Alex. You have one job.
I don't know. I used to even know people that could have done that. Now I don't think I do anymore. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, welcome to Sassy Saturday. If you are hoping for a completely serious and professional and stoic discussion of world events, I promise you that this is not going to be the best stream for you to watch. It's really not. Alex, how would you describe Sassy Saturday?
I do think beneath all the re and sass and bitchitude, there is like a kernel of something there, but we do it to appeal to the Kardashian watcher,
we do
that kind of person. So that this is how we get through to people that enjoy drama. But yeah, this one, I don't know. This one is going to be hard to be any kind of nuanced or reasonable, I'm sure.
I mean, I don't know what to think of today's. And to be really clear, Alex and I were not anticipating talking about either of these people again. Okay, we may have threatened to, we may have bluffed and said, we may have pretended that we were going to dedicate an entire season to Hunter Avallone, but no, that wasn't true. We were not planning on having a Keri Smith and or Hunter Avallone like reboot. We were moving on. It was season 2. We were graduating.
Right.
And then they decided to do this stream together.
I feel like there's a very high percentage of a chance that it's related to us, that it's related to the stream that we did.
I agree with you. I agree because to be honest, like Keri could have talked to Hunter Avallone like any time over the last 2 years. Like he's not hard to talk to. He talks to absolutely everyone. And so if Keri had really been curious about why Hunter left the right to go to the left, like she could have already arranged it. Why did she have to do it right after you got in a little bit of drama?
Well, after we did, I guess. I mean,
well, I guess I was involved too, technically, yeah.
But it wasn't even, the thing that Hunter doesn't even get is that it wasn't even really about him. Like,
no, it wasn't about him at all.
More about Doyle than him. He just happened to be there. And I just thought it would be good to see the Gen Z cringe on both sides, which it definitely delivered. And it really spawned a fear for the future that I think we should all have to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all about Hunter. And then obviously when I went on his channel, then we streamed about me being on there, which of course we had to. But this is very interesting. The timing is interesting. I don't know. I have no idea how this is going to go. Like, I don't know if Keri was trying to be like, I'll be the one to evangelize to him, or I have no idea why she did this.
No, go ahead.
It is the den of snakes. I'm just saying, it is like, yeah.
I agree. I mean, and we'll see how it goes. I truly have no idea what to expect. I accidentally stumbled on this as I was looking for something else, and it just popped up in my recommendations, and I was like, mother effer, what the hell?
I know when you showed me, I was like, what? And then I was like, oh shit, because I still have Hunter like on my Discord from when I streamed.
Really?
So I see when he streams, and I saw like it was like streaming conservative, whatever, because he always updates his status.
Yeah.
And I was like, no fucking way. Because you said, oh no, she's not on it. It's not really happening. And I said, oh, okay. But then when he said that, when he put that on as a status, I checked his channel and I saw she was on there, and I was like, holy crap, she's actually on there.
Well, it was weird because I saw Keri's channel pop up and I clicked into it. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I, you know, it was only Keri talking into the camera, and it kind of looked like Hunter had just like what I thought had happened is Hunter had ghosted her, and she was like, well, I have to do a live stream anyway, so I'm just gonna hang out with my audience and talk about hats or whatever. I only watched like 2 seconds of it, so I didn't even watch that much. I kind of slid the timeline around a little bit to see like, was Hunter even on this show, and I didn't see him at all. And then, but this is something that Hunter does, is like when he talks to someone, he also streams it on his channel, and sometimes he doesn't even tell you he's streaming it on his channel. PS. And so you went to his channel and you found it there.
Yeah, and then I saw that she was on his, and it makes sense because he has a lot more subscribers than she does, so that kind of makes sense to me on that level, like on a YouTuber level. But it's very I don't know, I have no idea how this is going to go. Like, it's kind of unpredictable, if I'm honest.
We have no idea what they're even talking about, what the subject matter even is. Like, is it a debate? Is it a discussion? What the hell is this?
I just wonder too, like, I mean, this is pretty obvious though, but it's like, I have 2 questions. Who's going to get triggered first? Which it's probably obviously going to be Hunter. That's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. But who will be more triggered by the end? And that's the one I don't know.
I think that it's going to be Hunter, and I don't think Keri's going to get triggered. I really don't. Listen, like, it is as much of an evil, vile cunt as I think Keri Smith is. I actually am probably going to end up siding with her more in this video than Hunter. And if I had to predict which one of them is going to behave more appropriately and more adult, again, that's going to be Keri, because as we've discovered, when Keri's not talking about me, she is actually kind of like a normal human being.
Plus when I saw that this happened, I was like, the odds of them talking shit about either you or I, or you or me, is very high. Like, there's gotta, especially with Hunter, because he's so like unhinged, he will just like throw shit out there at any moment. So we definitely have to we had to watch it. We had to.
Sin says, when the woke collides, yes, that's exactly. This is like woke on the left and woke on the right colliding in mid fucking air. And it also just happens, man. And this was the point where I knew that we had to watch this, Alex. You said it's the crossover episode that no one expected.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought when I saw it. And I was like, I mean, because you told me, you're like, we have to. And I was like, we really have to. Like, we don't have a choice. Like, we absolutely have to do this.
Because here's the thing. If we didn't do it this week and just get it out of the way, we would be thinking about it. We'd be like, what the fuck did those two talk about? We would regret it later. It would gnaw at us for weeks and weeks and weeks until we finally just did it. So why not just like rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with? Fine.
Also, too, like, I feel like there are definitely fans of Sassy Saturday, and we have to do this for the fans of Sassy Saturday. Yeah. That's how I feel
for the fans and the hate watchers alike. Really, this is closure on all levels. This is closure.
Oh, we're gonna have so much I told Carlin, I'm like, I think this one is gonna be really triggering to a lot of people. People are gonna be mad that we did this, but. So we did it anyway.
There's nothing they can do. There's nothing you can do, Keri. If you do public videos on the internet, people are going to comment on them. It's the way it is. Like, whatever. So, Alex, anything you want to say before we do our prayer? And I've got a beer I need to pour, but anything else we need to talk about this week?
Well, I definitely have to show for me because you know.
Please.
Hunter's channel is the Den of Snakes. This is the Den of Grifter. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding.
I'm about to start shamelessly grifting like I've never grifted before in my life. I don't give a fuck anymore.
I mean, you already called it all the time. You might as well,
Jesus
do it.
Christ.
But also, too, like, Hunter is such a grifter, by the way. But anyway, he's beyond. I don't even know if he believes half of what he says. But anyways, the point is, my channel is there.
Yes. I pinned it to the top of the chat. So make sure you subscribe to Alex's channel. It's very important.
Yes, I'm gonna actually be doing some other videos. I have like kind of weird, kind of gay short videos coming the next few days because I got tired, but I'm gonna I'm going to talk about fatness soon. So we're going to talk about
Ooh.
fatness, Aberdeen. And then there are some other conservative activism videos I wanted to make, or, you know, just different topics, but I can't think of any of them right now. But Carlin's fat study stream, I was like, I should talk about this.
That wasn't even the worst fat study. I'm going to send you did you watch the original fat studies stream?
Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah, that was much better. That was much more crazy.
That was crazy, but we definitely should do one of those for a Sassy Saturday, in my opinion. We should talk.
We just need to find one, but we need to really find for a Sassy Saturday for like the fat activism one is like a real like fat activist on YouTube that has like a fat activism podcast. That like we need to find one of those people, not like an academic priest, like one of the ones that you know is going to be completely off the fucking rails.
Right. But yeah, we should definitely do that, especially because we're fat, so we can attack our own.
I'm apparently am very entry level fat. I learned in that fat study. I barely even fucking qualify as fat.
You're probably still small fat. That's what they call it, which is a disgusting term. I would probably be like super fat or something. I'm not infinifat, but I'm probably the one below that one. So anyways, that'll be an interesting rabbit hole. But anyways, I'm gonna talk about
I'm gonna eat a whole bag of potato chips when we watch that episode.
Oh my god.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, so
I'm already married. I'm settled down. I can let myself go.
Oh my god. Just know, like, I don't always just read on my channel, but I do actually talk about other stuff that's more important. But I also do streams on there, which you guys have been loving the streams lately. So
I heard you did like a 24-hour stream the other night.
No. I just did it very late. I accidentally streamed till 4 a.m. And this is what happens when Gen Z is involved. They're a bad influence on me, but
it happens. It's like I write like so many times. Like I intend to do like a half-hour stream, and then I look up. It's like 3 hours later. I'm like, what the fuck happened? It's just me talking. Like
that happened to me, and I was like, oh my gosh. Even Caleb was in there, and he was like, you should go to bed. And I was like, oh, whatever. And I looked at the time, and I was like, oh my god, it's 4 a.m. I really should go to bed. But anyways, I stream late a lot of times, and I've streamed in the day once. It was shocking. That's really rare. But anyways, come on over. We'll chat and and whatever. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hate after today for a while.
Well, you love the way more than I do.
The Avadrones. What is it? What do they call them?
They have a name?
Avallone fans?
I don't know.
I think I heard Avadrone or something. I don't know.
That is a stupid name.
That's probably not what they call
that is almost okay
probably a hater name for them.
It's still a stupid name. They could be more creative than that. Well, I'm gonna pour a beer, and do you know what the name of the beer is, Alex?
Salt. Just kidding.
Hard rain like a queen. I feel like that's appropriate for my position. Isn't the can pretty?
It is pretty.
It's very nice. And this is an Imperial Blackberry Sour. So,
oh my goodness.
Not quite salt, but sour.
Sour, very much. Very much.
This is like the queen of all beers for this particular stream. Because I feel like I'm going to need it. It's going to be pretty.
Oh, it is pretty.
Sour beers are so pretty. I love jewel tones. Jewel tones are the best.
What's a jewel tone?
Like a dark, like a jewel, like a ruby or an emerald or a sapphire, or most of my shawls are like jewel tones because I like those dark, rich colors.
I started eating some pork rinds because of your
keto. They're keto.
I'm not keto. Don't spread. That's fake news. False
but they're good, aren't they? Did you? Did I see that they were salted? Wait, are they salt and vinegar pork rinds?
Yeah.
Do they actually taste like salt and vinegar chips?
Yeah. They're really good.
I want salt, vinegar, pork rinds. Oh my god. I love it.
I did that because I watched the fat studies thing today. It was actually a good one. That was interesting.
It was interesting.
It's a psyop. The whole thing is.
No, it really is. It's true. Sabrad says, hey, Car, please view video on Locals post. Sabrad, I promise you, I will look at the video on Locals. And guys, if make sure you join my Locals. That's the only shilling I have. Just join for free if you want to. kb.locals.com. And that's it. All right. Ready to get into the... Oh, you have to lead us in prayer. Our Sassy
yes.
Saturday tradition is that Alex has to lead us in a prayer for our grace and salvation.
Okay, I need to drink a glass of water really quick. Hold on.
I'll take a drink of beer. You can take a drink of water.
Something. Maybe the water will turn to wine.
Oh, that tastes so good. Oh, tastes like black. Oh my god, it's like the black raspberries, like the... You know what this beer tastes like? It tastes like black raspberries that were growing outside of the house I lived in as a child. And you go out and pick them and eat them right off the bush. They were really good. Anyway, all right, Alex.
Okay. Okay, dear Lord, I pray firstly for me and Carlin this time. I pray that we can handle whatever we're about to see, because I'm not sure what it's going to be, and it's a little scary, to be honest. To me, it's a little scary. I'm a little nervous, especially because, Lord, as you know, I'm very irritable today, so I might go a little off the rails. I do want to pray for Hunter as well. I pray that he will find, lower the anxiety a bit. I pray that he'll open his mind a bit more than he already thinks it is. And I pray for Keri. I pray that she will, I don't know, I pray that she does well. I pray that she did well in this stream. And I also pray that she isn't too affected by, that there isn't any after effect from talking to Hunter, because I know how that can be. I also pray for the audience. I pray that they'll survive, and I pray for the reers that are sure to be around, as we get a lot of re from both Keri fans and Hunter fans. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for the lovely prayer, Alex. That was great. I thought that was awesome. All right, let me just cue this up to the right point as Hunter is dinging around with the chat. All right. All right, guys, please mount that like button for us. You are not mounting the like button for Hunter and or Keri. You are mounting the like button for Alex and I. Go grab a cocktail, come and back and have fun. Sit back, kick up your feet. This video's a long one, so Alex and I might put it on ×2 speed so that we can end sometime tonight before this is over. But let's get this party started. God, I really hope Keri does well, and those are words I never thought I'd say in my life.
I know. Oh. It's the den of snakes.
It is.
It's bad. It's really bad.
As I mentioned, he's someone who's
so this is Keri's chat on the screen.
Right to the
this
left,
is Keri's chat on her channel.
I'm curious about that and interested in having a conversation with him about it. So welcome, Hunter. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me on. I'm so sorry that I was running behind too. You know how it is with kids.
That's okay. I don't know. I don't have kids yet.
Oh,
but...
well, just generally, as a general rule, never expect to be on time, right?
Right. Well, it worked out because my power went out right before you got here. So that would have happened while we were talking. It would have been weird. So
well, hey, at least me running late for once was a good thing. That's great.
Cool. So I'm just going to start off with, I told my chat a little about you, and the first thing I just wanted to ask you is, for anybody who's not familiar with you, I know there were people in my chat who were kind of like, oh, I don't want to hear from him, he's not sincere. But there are also people who are saying, I don't know anything about him. And I know very little about you. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you start doing YouTube videos? And when you say that you went from right to left, can you give us a little background on that?
Yeah, sure. So for most people watching, they probably know that I'm a really big grifter. Basically just go wherever the money is. And if, that means like selling out, changing my political views.
A rare moment of self-awareness. A rare moment. Thank you, Hunter. Well done. Well played. Well played.
A lot of people seem to think
do
that.
Well with satire. Sarcasm confuses me. People
don't worry. Don't worry. No, I started making YouTube
sarcasm,
videos way
Keri.
back when I was much younger, and I started off just making kind of funny like skits with my siblings and whatnot. But I really started to delve into the politics side of things near the end of 2014, and then especially in 2015. That's when I really started taking it more seriously. And it wasn't
how old were you when you say when you were young? Like, how old were you around that time?
I'm trying to think here. I was probably around 18 or 19. So I was
Oh,
pretty
okay.
young still when I first broke into the politics sphere of everything. But yeah, it wasn't until 2016 that I really started to
Grift.
gain more popularity on my channel. You know, views were starting to go up a lot more. I was starting to have more controversial opinions and really was just sharing a lot of conservative views, all of which were
What,
views that I truly held. So
can I ask you, what were some of those like conservative views that you had back then?
yeah,
Not
sure.
conservative, but conservative, or you said controversial. What were some of the controversial ones?
I mean, if they're conservative views, they're going to be controversial. So
Okay, yeah.
kind of one of the same. But
True.
I was heavily against anything involving the LGBT community. I was heavily against BLM. Trying to think what else I did. I was usually, those were like the big ones. I mean, I really started to gain a lot of notoriety after I did my video called "The Truth About Transgenders," which surely you can tell from just the title alone that sounds like, you know, it's going to get a very wonderful response from people on the left. Yeah, no,
What were you saying in that video? What were your opinions back then about transgender people?
Basically I was saying things that weren't really real arguments against LGBT stuff. So I was saying something like, you know, it's not normal or something, which I mean, it's not on a statistical sense, but I mean, whether or not something's normal is really aside the point as to whether or not it's moral or right
Did Hunter
or
go to
wrong.
college?
So some of
I
my
don't think
arguments were
so.
just kind
I don't
of
think so either.
poorly set up. I said it wasn't normal. I said that they I'm trying to think what
You
else I
kinda
said,
tell.
I
but
think I can understand you there, because I actually make this point quite a bit. Is for some reason people we seem to attach a value judgment to whether something's normal or not, to some things, but not to others.
Mhm.
So if you say, for example, it's not normal to have gender dysphoria, I think a lot of people will hear what you're saying is that it's bad, or it's that you should treat people who have it poorly or something, or it's inferior, when that's not what I think that means. And for some reason we don't do it with other things. Like if we say it's not normal for Jewish people to be tall, there's
Mhm.
no value judgment there, right? Like it's not like, and therefore let's treat them poorly.
Right, exactly.
You know,
No, I definitely
but
I definitely can see where you're coming from. And I think that was part of the problem in my initial video, is that I was actually saying that it wasn't normal as a way to further attack transgender individuals. A lot of it though is I think just based purely on a misunderstanding. I didn't really have a good concept or understanding of sex and gender and how those concepts sort of work together, but aren't necessarily
Hunter went
like
to the gulag and was
connected to
educated.
say per se, like in a causal
Wait, where was
sense.
he? Where did he get?
No,
A lot of it
he
was just
basically,
kind of a lack of understanding. I definitely
he's basically, Hunter's basically saying, like, when I was conservative, like, I just didn't understand. It was like a lack of education, and now he's been educated in the ways of the left.
Oh, nice. Did he go to the camp?
I don't know. It kind of seems like it.
And I love Nat, what Nat said. He said he
Oh, this one? Yeah. Changed my mind. Yeah, I agree. No, I think it got educated by the wife. I think it's the wife.
Yeah.
And again, that's no shade at his wife. I actually think his wife is quite lovely. But she
I think it maybe woke bullying. Like I've seen it work on some people, like Taylor Swift, for example. She wasn't woke at first, but then they bullied her and then she caved. So, but it's easier to turn a center leftist or a center lefty to woke if you push them or bully them into it. So that's what happened with Taylor. But I don't know. I think it could happen to Hunter too. Like it could have been the woke attacked him, or like I said, could have been that a lot of cancellations are going on in 2020. You know, things were shifting. Things were psyopy at that time, and he could have been. I don't know. I think there was some benefit for him to change. I'll just put it to you that way. That's complete speculation, but
I absolutely think there was financial incentive for him to. It is a lot easier to make money on the left on YouTube or Twitch than it is on the right. A lot easier.
Yeah, and I think too. You know, I think the money was drying up. A lot of people were having problems in 2020 on YouTube. I remember that, where views were way down. You know, it was like bad. So I think that there could have been something like that for sure.
All right.
They thought that the trans community was ignoring biology and stuff like that. Which even now I can understand why people might have that perspective, because I know why I had that perspective. And it was really because I just didn't understand the concepts the way that I do now.
So now you don't believe that you don't believe there's a connection between sex and gender, a biological basis.
Yeah, well, there definitely is a connection in the sense that, socially speaking, we apply certain forms of gender expectations and gender roles on people, which are fully socially constructed. But there obviously is a connection because the way in which we go about assigning those gender roles are based usually on when someone's born and looking at their genitals. So it is correlated with biology.
But you think it's all social?
Well, not the biological part, but the gender part. Yes, the gender concept is talking about a social construct.
Have you read those studies about, I'm sure you have, that get cited a lot, excuse me, about capuchin monkeys, I think it was, where they studied them and they gave them different kinds of toys. And the female monkeys, the baby monkeys, would gravitate more towards dolls, and the male monkeys would gravitate more towards movable. Like
Keri fucking loves this study. She's been studying the study for like 3 years.
Study specifically, but I'm definitely aware of the fact that
which
there have been studies that show that a lot of the times males will gravitate towards different sorts of activities than females will. But the thing is that
thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
I don't.
This is how you get your chat shown on the screen right here. This is how you get your chat shown.
So, for example, maybe the average male would be more likely to gravitate towards a toy truck. I don't think that it should then be used as you're not really a good man, or you're kind of like a weak beta man if you don't want to play with trucks.
Well, I actually agree with you on that. So there's one thing we can put in the agree on column. I don't think there's anything wrong, excuse me, with a girl who prefers trucks over dolls, or a boy prefers dolls over trucks. So there's no moral judgment there. I don't think there's one right way to be a man or a woman. So, but let me back up a little, because I kind of got specific when I wanted to hear more of the broad strokes. So you were doing these videos when you were like around 20, you were young, you were doing conservative videos on YouTube. Is that when you built up a pretty large following? I was looking at your page. Is that when you built most of those followers?
It was primarily during 2016, 17, and even 18 and 19. I was really building quite a lot of followers. Primarily 2016, it was kind of interesting because although the anti-feminist wave was massively like happening in 2016, I started making anti-feminist videos, and it was the complete reverse. It wasn't as if I saw that this thing was really popular and then decided to do it. It was actually that I was hearing a lot of shit about. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I able to swear on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I was hearing a lot of crap about feminism and the insane things that some of these feminists were saying. And so I started to make videos just sharing my thoughts on that. And I didn't even know that this was like a huge thing on YouTube at the time. So obviously from there, my videos really started to pick up traction, and I started to gain really from 2016.
I can actually buy into that. I didn't believe him at first, but I can actually buy into that. And I say that just because, like, I have absolutely no effing idea what's going on YouTube on any given day. I don't look, I don't actually pay attention to it. So as much as I might want to say that I think Hunter was just grifting to build an audience, I think that might have legitimately just been an accident.
The thing is, like, there's a certain truth to it, just because the anti-feminist movement and YouTube was more in 2015. Like, it was the Blair White wave. She took off in 2015. And I remember everything because I've been on the right forever, but go ahead and call me a grifter, Hunter Avallone. But it was earlier, so there might be some truth to what he's saying. And that the anti-feminist thing, that lasted a long time. That didn't die down until at least 2019, so it was going on for like a few years. So I could believe it, but that he listened to it first and then did it. But whether he did it just for money or not, you know what I think. So
sometimes we can do things that we enjoy, that we are committed to, and still make money from them.
Yes.
It's nice when those things happen. It's nice.
I think certain people, they like to present a certain image or, spout certain talking points that they know that people want to hear, whether it's on the right or the left, and they see the money that's there. And I think that that's someone like Hunter, 100%.
Onward.
And were you always, because I know you were young when you said you first started getting into these, like sharing your opinion, your political opinions and your ideas on cultural issues. Were you raised in a household that was conservative, or was that something you came to as a young adult on your own?
It was a
Did
little
you
bit
have
of
opinions before that, political opinions before that when you were younger?
Yeah, it was really a little bit of both. So, I mean, my parents were not actually really super political in general. They were more just kind of, the standard, well, we vote against the Democrats, just vote Republican. They weren't really like into politics the way that I am, for sure. But my grandparents were a lot more into politics. They were also really heavily conservative. They were considered Tea Party, I think, for a little while. And so some of my inspiration for politics definitely came from their influence on me, I think. But I've always been a really outspoken and passionate person. And like when I believe something, I always am interested in fighting for that opinion in a way. So although my opinions definitely somewhat came from my grandparents, they were also my own opinions, and I did believe them to be correct and true as I was talking about this in my content. But yeah, I've always just been a really passionate person too about stuff that I'm into.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
just
so-
noticed?
So what happened?
They're talking about astrology in Keri's chat.
What are they saying?
This guy's just saying that he's a Scorpio and they sting. They're talking about astrology in Keri's chat.
They're talking
Keri,
about
are you
Hunter.
secretly wooed? Are you hiding from us, Keri?
Oh, that would be something in the agree column for you and Keri.
It would be Keri. I need to find out Keri Smith's fucking birthday. Here's what I need. I need some internet sleuth to find for me the following information: month of birth, day of birth, year of birth, location of birth, even if it's just like the state, and here is the big one: time of birth. We need a time of birth, even like if it's just like morning or afternoon. And with that information, I will be able to run Keri Smith's astrological chart, and I will be able to find out what the ever-loving F is going on that has her karmically latched onto me as like the most evil person she knows in the world. That would be really helpful. Savrit says, I want to trade a Dos Equis for your Dos Equis for your fancy beer or whatever. I wish I could. Savrit, I wish I could pass it through the screen to you, but I promise you, I will check out the video you posted in locals later. I promise. That's the best I can do, my friend.
I think it's because. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's because you guys are opposite.
I don't know.
Libra,
Well, but
and
I'm a Libra rising.
Yeah, but you're very Aries. I have to call you out on that.
Well, no, I mean I am, but like, can you imagine how, like, I'm an Aries Sun, Leo Moon, Libra rising. Can you imagine how Aries I would be if I didn't have that Libra rising?
I think it probably tapered you when you were young, but you're like full blown Aries now.
No. I am much more balanced and conciliatory than people think. You should look at what I did on Twitter last night with James Lindsay and Justin O'Donnell. I was like playing fucking mediator. I was like, James, stop being a dick. Justin, shut the fuck up.
I know, but you're Pluto and Libra, which kind of it makes it all weird. So I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe we might be opposites. We might be.
For you in your transformation of thought, because I know, and people who watch my show, they sort of know the broad strokes of what happened to me, which was a long process of leaving what I do call a cult of belief. My old belief system was social justice. I was in it for 2 decades.
I'm getting
came to it
echo.
around the same time.
Oh, sorry.
Hang
probably
Not the same time. I'm a
It's
bit
gone.
older than
It's
you.
gone.
Quite a bit. I came to it around the same age that you started doing your political videos. So when I was at college in my late teens, that's when I sort of started through women's studies classes, critical race theory, queer theory, these kind of classes. I was picking up this belief system that I don't think I even realized it was a belief system at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was in it for a long time. Leaving it also took a couple years. What was your story? Like what were some things that you started to think that made you question your beliefs and things that you'd been talking about?
Right. I mean, it too was a pretty slow process. A lot of people are under the impression that this happened overnight for me. And I think part of the reason for that is just because since I was like a public conservative figure, people aren't seeing my day-to-day life. I didn't make vlog videos, right? Like, I mean, I would jump on my camera and record a video. I was usually posting 2 videos a week, and it was just me talking about politics. People really had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. So I sympathize with some people who claim that like it seems like I transformed my political beliefs overnight or something like that. But in reality, it was just a very long process.
I agree with Hunter on that. It's not an overnight thing, and people do make that mistake like all the time, all the time. I even still hear to this day, you left the left because people were nice to you at a Trump rally. Like, no, that's not actually what happened at all in any way. But thank you for trying.
Well, I think. Oh my
Wait,
god.
Hunter Avallone says every other Wednesday is pagan night at the Avallone residence.
I have to say that the people on the internet, a lot of people on the internet are terrible at seeing past the lens of a camera. Like they have zero intuition, because even like a lot of the Hunter Avallone fans, they really think I left the left. And I say, I've never been on the left, honey. I never was, ever. Never, ever. Thank God I was never on the left, but I never have been on the left. And so they're like, you left the left because people were mean to you. It's like, no, like, I'm sorry that that's so common, that so many people have left the left because of how awful you guys are. But for me, it was why I never even entertained it. You know, it was one of the biggest, it wasn't the only reason. Obviously, I thought about the things and whatever, but it's like, it was still a part of why I never even ever entertained going to the left. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was never on it, and I'm still not. So it's
That's
like,
so interesting that everyone thinks you left the left, probably just because like you're associated with me. It's like, no.
Or because I'm gay, which it's like, you know, there are conservative gay people. There always have been. So, I mean, get over it. I don't know. You guys suck. The left sucks. I'm sorry.
People just make people just make so many assumptions, and it's just like the things that I hear. It's like, that's crazy. Like, you invented that. That's not real.
Right. And so I think that can work all around. However, I will still stand by, I think he switched for financial reasons and all this stuff. I still think that. And I don't know if I'll be able to be convinced, but that's because of him, not because of, you know, anybody who changes is that way. No, a lot of people change, and there are people that have gone to the left. It's a little bit less common than it seems the other way, just because we live in such a, you know, the leftists, they saturate everything culturally. Usually if you're conservative, you've grown up hearing left-wing arguments your whole life. You know what I mean? So it's a little different.
Well, you know what it's like though? It's like it's like in the Matrix when what's his name? Like Cypher wants to go back into the Matrix. It's like you're always gonna have one guy that just can't handle it and like just wants to be put back to sleep. I'm looking up because I have a ladybug flying around on my light over here, and it's like I actually like ladybugs, and so I don't actually mind. It's very cute actually. No, I mean, it's like it is very hard for me to it's hard for me to believe that most people, once they're on the right, or at least once they're like red pilled, would ever go back to the left. That just doesn't make sense to me. And that's not to say you can't like agree with them somewhat on like some like on an issue here and there. That's not like you totally can do that without being on the left. But like to go back and go full leftist like he did, it's just like, dude, come on, that's not real. That's not real.
Yeah, that's why I think it's grifty, because it's like, I think you'd be at least, like you said, like you'd at least be able to engage with somebody that was conservative, right? Like if you used to be, you'd at least understand where it came from. And when I talked to him, I didn't feel like he had any understanding. Like he had never been conservative, because I've talked to conservatives, obviously I am one, you know, I've been around them forever. And it's like, there are certain things that you just understand, you know? And so it's like, even if you don't agree with it anymore, you understand, oh, this is where the right was 10 years ago, right?
Right.
And that's how you think about it. And it's like, so when I talked to him, I'm like, there was zero understanding, zero nuance, nothing. And it's just grifter vibes, very grifter vibes. You know, he never had any position. I don't think he has any now either. I think he's apolitical, probably deep down.
I think he goes to where he needs to go, and then he finds studies to confirm the bias that he wants to have.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think it's all. This is like Hunter Avallone is an exercise in confirmation bias.
Yes, griftermation bias. Yes,
Griftermation bias. We're gonna coin a new term. Excellent. Well done.
For-
Oh, hang on. We got one more super chat before we jump back into it. Vegans do eat that thing that I'm not going to say, but at the Avallone residence, we just call it cleanup. Thank you, Hunter.
Oh my God.
I didn't write the super chat. I didn't send the super chat. I'm just reading the super chat, folks. It's not my fault. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate the money.
First, it was the birth of my daughter. At the time, you know,
See, wife.
I was pretty anxious about all of that, especially because you know, I was so young and everything. But once my daughter was born, I was so thrilled to have her, and that was kind of the first thing that.
See, wife. It wasn't daughter, it was wife. Savrit says, sun, moon, and stars equal aesthetic heavens, and the physical realm of matter. Consciousness equals true light of invisible information and divine heavens of spirit. Thank you, Savrits. I agree.
Really started this off because I started thinking, I was so confident in my opinion that having a kid here was not going to be the right thing for me. And yet here I was completely wrong about that. So I sort of started reassessing, like, what else might I be wrong about in my life? Because I was like shocked because of how strongly I held the belief that this was not going to be a good idea for me, or this was going to be something that was going to really kind of screw up my life in a way. I know it sounds harsh, but I mean, those were truthfully the kind of thoughts that were going
that's
through my
not a
head.
conservative value.
And then,
Hunter.
obviously
hang on.
that turned out to be
Go ahead.
It's not a conservative value to think a child is going to destroy your whole life. That's a leftist thing to think like that. And I'm just saying, I have a hard time.
He was young. I
understand, but it's something on the right. You just have to trust me, Carlin. Like, it's just something. People on the right that have kids young, sometimes it's in the dumbest ways and it's crazy as hell. Like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of right-wing ratchet.
Because you guys don't like to teach people about how babies are made until it's too late. This is what happens.
But the point is, you usually aren't like, it's going to ruin my life or whatever. Not like him. And he was not, you know, it's not like he was like 16. You know what I mean? He had an income already and everything. So I'm just saying, I don't think he ever believed the values. You weren't never conservative, Hunter. I'm sorry. You weren't.
All right.
completely different. And I now actually have a son as well. So
congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of where it really started.
And when he tried to
I did
leave
some
his
debates. I
girlfriend,
was
that's
confronted with
horrible.
certain data sets that really
That is
kind of
really
flew in the
bad.
face of the type of opinions that I was espousing previously. And it was really through 2019 where the majority of my change happened. So my daughter was born at the very beginning of 2019, and it wasn't until 2020 in like April or something that I actually announced that I was leaving completely, like walking away from the right. So I mean, it was still quite a process. There was still a lot of introspection. I had to do a lot of research. So yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of clears up the thought that maybe this was just like overnight.
Were you back then, when you say you left the right, were you were you a Republican? Were you strongly identified? Would you say you were pro-Republican and pushing a party, or was it more of
I mean,
conservatism?
I would vote. Yeah, I mean, I voted Republican, of course. And yeah, I wasn't so much like, oh, the Republican, the RNC. I wasn't exactly into that side of things. It was much more the sort of conservative social politics, especially. That's why I still right now focus primarily on social politics. So, like I said, trans stuff, BLM, those are some of the top top subjects that I would hit on because
Things that
it's
trended.
social issues, and I had
Yeah.
a conservative opinion on them at the time.
I mean,
Things
it's
you can
okay
make money
to
off of.
And what
It's
about
okay to
now?
value
Are you
social
a
stuff, though.
Democrat? Do you
Yeah,
would you say
but
that
you
you're
would talk
someone
about
who
other issues, not just
same
what is
question, you push the
trending.
Democratic Party, or you just consider
That's fair
yourself,
enough.
you said in your bio you're a social democrat. So what does that mean?
Yeah, and just to clarify for people in the chat, a social democrat is not the same thing as a democratic socialist.
Oh, because they're
To be
so
crystal clear,
different,
I am not
Hunter.
What's the difference?
What's
So
the
a
difference?
social democrat believes
Excellent,
in
Keri.
capitalism still, which I do. I think that capitalism right now is
No.
the best and most realistic, at the very least, economic system. And I think that the best way that we can go about improving society is partially, besides, of course, the social change, but also the implementation of stronger social safety nets. So I always point to the Scandinavian countries, which have just stronger social safety
It's
nets.
democratic
they have
socialism, Hunter.
more access to healthcare.
It's
I think
literal
that's a really
democratic
big thing that needs to
socialism.
change here in America. And their happiness
No
levels over
difference.
there are way
It's not
higher
different.
than where we are here in America. They have much more economic mobility as well. So that's what a social democrat is. A democratic socialist, those are people that believe in socialism, which I still think socialism and communism are honestly like a pipe dream at best, maybe incoherent at times as well. But they believe that we should get to socialism democratically. So vote, kind of play into the system until we are able to reach a point that we can then implement actual socialism.
What are the
Usually some form
examples that
of
are always
market
used for
socialism.
democratic socialism?
So yeah,
Scandinavian
that's not that.
countries.
I'm not a commie. I'm not a commie cuck, as I say over here. So
He's not communist.
There's someone asking this in chat. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I started it, so I can find it. Now
He's
you
a
can
step
tell me if
away,
you think
though.
this is accurate or not. I don't know. He says, does anyone catch, this is regret to inform you, and anyone catch him saying that his anti-gay views were, quote, conservative opinions? That pisses me off. He may have been a phobe, but don't blame your personal views on a party.
Right.
Do you
I
think
agree.
that you were phobic back then, or that you didn't like gay people or trans people? Were you I don't know,
Grifting?
prejudiced
Homophobic.
towards them? Homophobic? Yeah.
All the phobics and the isms. Yeah, well, first to address the question, I mean, it's primarily conservatives who are pushing
No.
for legislation that is
Yes.
anti-gay or anti-trans.
Yes.
It is primarily conservatives who are not
Now,
as
I
in
agree with
favor
some of
of
that
gay
legislation.
marriage,
Don't get me
primarily because
wrong. I
there
agree
tends
with
to be
some
a
of
lot
the
overlap
trans
between
sports stuff.
Christian conservatives as well.
But
I
he's
know,
not
but
wrong.
left is anti-gay
Not
was I
wrong.
a
It's
phobe?
different.
Like, no, I don't actually think I was. I definitely spread bullshit that contributed to that kind of thing, and I definitely spread nonsense that other people who did vehemently hate gay people and think that they were like subhuman degenerates would totally agree with and
Yes.
love my content then. But no, I don't think that I myself was actually like a really homophobic person in the sense that I wasn't scared.
I'm not going to suggest that all conservatives are homophobic or transphobic. That's not what I mean. But what Hunter is saying about there being people on the right, and I think you'll agree with this, like alt-right people who are legitimately very homophobic and very transphobic, like really do not like gays or trans people at all in any way. They do gravitate towards that type of content.
Well, sure, but my whole thing is not so much that there isn't homophobia on the right. It's just that it's always been the same on both sides. And where they'll push for one policy on the right, the left will push for another policy on the left. That's just as bad for gay people. Like, for example, transing the gay away. That's what the left is doing.
I agree with that. Yeah, sure.
So I'm just saying they're just different. But most people on both sides today are accepting, and that didn't used to be the case.
I don't know if you can say that when Ted Cruz is pulling out "Let's rethink gay marriage" to virtue signal to the base. He was virtue signaling to the base.
He was being dumb, and he didn't even say anything. He just said, he's like, I don't know if I agree. I don't agree with it, but I don't want it to change. Then why are you talking about it, Ted? Just don't talk about it. But at the end of his statement, he's like, I don't want to do it though. Anyways, okay, then why are you talking about it at all?
Ted Cruz knew exactly what he was doing. Please, Ted Cruz is a lawyer. He is very smart. Very smart.
No, it was cringe what he did, but that's a whole other topic. And I've only ever been 50-50 on him. He's half swamp creature.
Well, well, that's exactly. Ted Cruz is going to say and do whatever he needs to do.
Right.
That serve Ted Cruz. Like,
he tries to ride both sides. He tries to be like Trumpy, but still swampy. He's a missing link in the Republican Party, and it showed in that statement. It was cringe. But I don't like the Texas Republicans. I'm just going to say that. So, and I didn't like living in Texas. I know that's a hot take, but
Texas sucks. Texas sucks on several different levels.
I didn't like it.
Scared of gay people. I didn't run away from gay people. You know, I knew gay people at the time. I know that's kind of corny. I have a gay friend, but I wasn't really
corny.
I wasn't really like a personal homophobe, but I would say that that's almost irrelevant because the content that I made and the type of bad ideas that I furthered,
I think he still is homophobic.
To far more homophobia.
I felt very homophobic.
No,
whether or not I was actually personally a homophobe was
I hate to even put it this way. It's fucking internalized homophobia.
Yeah, I think so.
It is
because going on his stream, that was one of the most homophobic experiences I've been through. If I'm honest,
really,
and it was public. Yes, and it was for 2 hours. There's only one time I've been in a situation that bad, and it was when I was talking to an alt-right person. And that's pretty much those two, leftists and alt-right. They both hate gay people. They hate them. And I'm telling you, yeah, he was very homophobic towards me. And every time he would stream about me, it's gay conservative, gay conservative.
Well, you do label yourself as the gay conservative.
Not anymore. And I only did it for that time. But the thing is, like, I have a name, don't I?
You do.
Should I call him grift or leftist? I mean,
you do call him grift or leftist.
I know, but I do call him that way. I say his name. Say my name. You're supposed to be SJW, Hunter. Say my name. I'm a human being. Right? But no, he's homophobic.
No, I think Hunter Avallone wants a dick in the ass more than anyone else on this earth, other than Nick Fuentes, who obviously wants one more.
Very true. But also, I mean, most homophobes, it is internalized homophobia. When I was homophobic in my youth, it was internalized homophobia. That's typical. Most people that are, there's something going on, you know, a lot of times.
Hunter, you can embrace it. Embrace the
right.
go like take the wife, go meet some swingers. Like, you know, there are ways to explore. There are ways to explore in which you can still retain your masculinity and feel like you didn't give up anything, and just like play, dude. It's okay.
Just find a way to calm down about it. I don't know, because it's not my problem that you have an issue with your own proclivities, Hunter. I don't deserve to be treated that way. And neither does any other gay person.
That's true.
Like I said, you're right up there with this super extra alcoholic alt-righter that I debated with about gay. It was just as bad. That was how bad it was. So I hope he can reflect on that. But it was very homophobic. That whole conversation it was bad. So, and he still is. He is very homophobic. Absolutely.
I agree. Tom J, thank you for the super chat. Late to Sassy Saturday. Why is this lady zooming with her son in the next room? Oh, Tom J. The guys, we are watching the one, the only Keri Smith debate Hunter Avallone. It is the crossover episode none of us ever expected, so we hope you're enjoying it. Please mount that like button if you are. We do this many Saturdays, though not all Saturdays. It just depends. Nat D says Hunter's videos from 2016 and 2017 were very homophobic.
That's why I didn't watch him.
He was working. You know what? Maybe this is Hunter's path to self-acceptance. He was working through some feelings when he was younger, and then he started realizing that it was okay to be gay, and now he's slowly moving towards accepting why he was so homophobic in the first place.
Maybe. And like I said, it's like you know, when I asked him about why he changed, it was literally the gay issue. And that's very telling. You know, if that is really what changed you, there's something going on. I've dealt with conservatives that don't support gay marriage, what do they say? This is what they say every time. I don't care about, like, I'm fine with the people. I just don't support the lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. And then they never talk about it unless if you bring it up. That's straight conservatives that aren't for gay marriage, that are normal. That's what they say.
I don't think it's normal to say that lifestyle thing, but whatever. Well, I can agree on the pattern. I agree on the, I agree that they use that as an excuse. I do. Yes.
That's just what they say.
That's what they
I
say.
don't believe it's in the Bible, whatever. They'll say that kind of thing, but they don't ever really talk about it. That's how you know that they're not gay. Someone like Hunter.
He talks about it all the fucking time. All the time.
Yes, or others in the space that we've talked about. Others on the right that always talk about it. If they find
do videos about banning porn. Porn wouldn't bother you so much if you weren't thinking about it, John Doyle.
There's plenty of people on the right that I believe are closeted. Tons. And you can tell because they bring it up all the time. And it's like, we know your stance on it. You don't have to bring it up every day. And if you do, then there's you get to be a doth protest too much kind of person. And I'm just saying, and it's the same thing. It can be just as much on the left. I have dealt with closeted. I am gay. I am gay with a capital G.
No kidding.
I have dealt with closeted cases on both sides of the aisle, and it's similar. And I will say, there's something to what Carlin is saying about Hunter. There is. He took it too personal. It was too personal, Hunter.
He is being very nice to Keri right now. You know why? Because he is not threatened by Keri at all.
And because Keri isn't gay. If she was a lesbian, he would be flipping out on her because he's homophobic. So it's okay for Keri to be conservative because she's straight. So it's okay. I mean, it's blatant. You can see how different I was treated. It was awful.
I agree. Savrit says the vid's information should be illuminating to all. Guys, please go watch Savrit's video in my locals. You can find that at kb.locals.com. It is free to join. You only pay if you want to. All right, let's keep going.
Is almost irrelevant.
Okay, so let's dig into this then, because you say conservatives are pushing anti-gay or anti-trans policies.
Yes.
We probably have some disagreement on this. So, and maybe we have some overlap on things we do agree on. But for example, what would you define as anti-trans? Do you think that in Texas, that's where I'm at, for example, our governor has now said we're not going to allow children to make permanent medical decisions regarding gender identity until they're an adult. So there were some clinics here that were doing even double mastectomies on kids as young as 13.
Jesus Christ.
That's not going to happen anymore. Our governor has said no puberty blockers, no cross-sex hormones, no surgeries until you're 18. And you mentioned the Scandinavian countries. In some ways you admire them. This is one of the ways I admire them in some ways too. Switzerland and Finland, for example, they have done this. They have banned these elective medical procedures until you're 18.
That was smart by Keri.
Is that a policy?
Smart play.
That's a policy I agree with. I don't think it's anti-trans. I think it's geared towards protecting children from themselves, the medical establishment, maybe misguided parents. Is that legislation or that you would consider a policy that you would consider anti-trans?
Just to be clear, is this the one where Governor Abbott said that it was child abuse and that parents should be investigated for?
It is child abuse.
Okay, yeah. To be honest, I'm trying to take a more like empathetic approach here too, because I can honestly see it from the conservative standpoint. And I also think that there's a lot wrong with the industry right now in how they handle the issue of transgender people. So this is sort of like a multi-layered question / problem. So, for example, trans people exist and can be valid in their gender identity, while simultaneously certain clinics and medical institutions might not be following policies properly and in turn doing actually legitimate harm to people who might not actually be trans at the end of the day. So just to be clear, even if there were a problem with the gender clinics and with the medical institution, that is a separate problem. Whereas like trans people as a actual concept, I think that they're valid regardless of how the medical institution handles stuff. But
what does that mean though? They think that they're valid.
like I would believe that, yeah, people are saying that it's valid. Here comes the buzzwords. No, not at all. This means that I validate their gender identity, and I believe that they are the gender that they say they are. That's what valid means. Just for the person in chat, that is not
They
a
actually
buzzword
call
at
it
all.
affirming.
Well, that's important.
They call it
to figure out what
affirming,
those
not
definitions
validation.
mean, so I can
Affirming.
understand what you're saying, and you can understand me. And so you're saying when you say
Keri's
you
so
believe
quick
they're
to define
valid,
things when
you
she's
are
not diagnosing someone as a
you're
narcissist
saying
and a
that they are the
sociopath.
gender they say they are, but not the biological.
I'm gonna next time she diagnoses me as a
Well,
narcissist, I'm
they
like,
are the
Keri, can you
biological
please
sex.
define
That's not
narcissism? Because
an
I just want to
identity.
make sure I
So
can
if somebody
understand
came to me who was biologically male and said, I identify as a biological female, I would say, no, you're not a biological female, because your biology is a fact of the matter and it's irrelevant based on how you identify. Because again, it has to actually be a form of identification for it to be something you can identify as or identify with, right? So female is not a form of identity, whereas man and woman, based on the social collection and characteristics that we assign to people, that is a form of identity. And so it's definitely, I understand how it's sounds really complicated, but I mean, there are a lot of identities that we accept just off of people's word. I mean, I like to bring up religion a lot, which with the one caveat, of course, being that you can change your religion, where it's a little bit harder to change your gender identity.
You don't have to get surgery
to
be in a religion.
has never really worked.
Or to be gay
unless you're in a cult.
I mean, if somebody comes up to me and tells me that they're a Christian, I have no way of really knowing that. I can't verify this. So I take them at their word for it at the end.
Tom J says, talking to this kid seems like child abuse. What is happening? We're not really sure, Tom J. This is unfolding in front of us. Like,
I don't know.
We had no idea. We have no idea what's going on. I don't think this is child abuse, though. I think this is like, it's boring, but it's not child abuse in any way.
I think Keri did well to connect it to Scandinavia.
That was very smart. I have to give Keri points for that. That was like debate technique right there.
Yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too that I'm trying to think. He's comparing it to religion. Like you can't know for sure, but there's still evidence of you being something or not. You know, like if somebody says they're pagan and maybe they have crystals, maybe they have something, you know, there's still going to be signs that they are, unless there's nothing at all. It's like, well,
our thoughts dictate our behaviors. Our true beliefs dictate our behaviors. That, like, why would we take action on something if we didn't believe it was true, fundamentally? And so if someone is not doing something, like if someone is not making any effort to transition at all, even socially, like I have to question whether or not they really believe they are that thing, because like what emotions are they having that are telling them they're that thing that are not resulting in any sort of behavior change? And like I don't think there's anything wrong with like even kids socially transitioning, like wear baggy clothes, cut your hair, who the fuck cares? Like everyone goes through that phase pretty much. But like insofar as like surgery, I believe I'm X, Y, B, and Z should not be enough. I'm sorry.
When I just think too, like, you know, this ideology, it reinforces a very, very strict and harsh binary, which this has been pointed out many times, but there's such a thing as a tomboy, you know, there's such a thing as someone like me who's a boy but who's gay. You know, I wore dress up in kindergarten. I talked with the girls a lot better than with the guys, but I also played with blocks too. I probably just confused the hell out of my poor evangelical in school, but but I, you know, at the end of the day, like you don't have to be so extra about it. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what the left does. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, Tommy, you're playing with Barbies. We got to get you on hormones. It's like, dude, you can wear makeup as a guy. You can have a haircut like Carlin as a girl. You know, you can do different things and you don't have to change. And I wish that was promoted more, because I do think that there is a very, very small subset of, you know, probably minuscule amount that really needs the hormones and surgery and whatever to even just be alive. But I think most people, you you could just come to terms with yourself, and then you don't have to, it's a hard path to be trans. It's hard. You have to have lifelong hormones. The surgeries are rough, especially bottom surgery. It's not something that you want to undertake unless if you absolutely have to. And I feel like the left, especially, they just jump to that. And it's like, you don't have to just jump to that,
Mm-hmm.
And for some it will work, but I think for others, they don't have to do all that. It's a lot. Plus, it's a lot of money and all this stuff. So that's a whole other topic of conversation. But I think that's where a lot of the push for it comes from, is they want the money.
They want the money, they want the power. It's about it's also about not even just like the surgery. This is like lifelong medication.
Hormones.
And not even just hormones, but like psychiatric medication as well.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, because a lot of them are going to be on like antidepressants, and especially if it goes wrong, they're going to be on antidepressants the rest of their lives.
That's true.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Savret says, trans about unifying the opposites of feminine and masculine as an organism when man knew no woman and woman knew no man, how God is neither or, the manipulators creating it in the realm of matter. I agree with this. I think that everyone is a combination of masculine energy and feminine energy, and some women have more masculine energy and some men have more feminine energy. I mean, Joshua talks about this with me all the time. He talks about how like trans women have like the most masculine energy, like overtly excessive masculine energy. And he doesn't understand why that's true just of trans women, but I thought it was an interesting observation. Anyway. Yes, I think that she's around that. She's around that. Are you zeroing in on her birthday? That would be very helpful.
Remember, her real name is Karen.
Yes, it is Karen. It's Karen Smith, just like in Mean Girls. Which, I mean, the collective consciousness, what a sense of humor. Did you hear that the New York Times tweeted out an article about like encouraging people about cannibalism today?
Gosh, I saw your tweet.
They were like, there's a time and a place for cannibalism. This is New York fucking Times. New York Times. And you know what's funny about that? Do you know the movie Soylent Green? Did you ever see this movie? You need to watch this movie. It's a classic. It's related to cannibalism. And it came out in 2020. Or 2022, excuse me. It is an older movie that is directly about cannibalism that came out that the movie is based in 2022. But it came out in like the 70s.
That's crazy.
And so that's like the collective consciousness on track right there.
What do you I don't know, maybe we shouldn't get too further into that, but let's just say I'm a little worried about this fall and winter, about what's going to be going on
with food.
Yeah.
Shit, I hadn't even thought of that.
Because the harvest comes in soon, and the harvest was screwed up in May, or the planting was screwed up in March, which it was just perfectly timed for the planting season.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah. So let's see.
All right.
But the thing is that just like trans people who, if they identify as a woman, odds
and
are
now they're putting out that article
and present themselves with
crazy.
Some kind of an understanding of what cis women present themselves as. So similarly, Christians, I don't know at the end of the day if you're really a Christian or if you're really not a Christian, but I can also look for signs to indicate that. So you might go to church every day, or every Sunday. You might have a Jesus shirt. You might have a Christian or a cross on your wall.
I don't look at those things.
You really should look at those things, Keri. That's bad.
Before you got here, I was trying to explain to people, grifter, for example, since that came up in my chat, where they were like, oh, don't talk to him, he's a grifter. And before you got here, I was saying, well, grifter, it means something. And I think there are grifters. I've met a few. You and I probably agree on who some grifters are.
Yep.
In my opinion, they're con artists. And so they're people who
she's talking about me.
Are saying
Hi, Keri.
They're saying ideas and beliefs that are not
literally wrote a book about fighting back
order
against the woke left, Keri.
Money or fame or power over others. And you've got those in Christianity, you've got them in woke, you've got them in anti-woke, you've got them in any belief system. And so it really comes down to me.
Definitely have them in Christianity.
So I look to behaviors. I look to the way people carry themselves in the world to see what they believe.
Mhm.
because I've gotten to the point
Yes,
where,
Keri, we look
like
at that
you, I'm
too, and you
sure,
are
and like
not a
other
fucking
people,
Christian.
I've been fooled by the words
I think
people
she's
say.
baby, but
And
she's very baby. She
as I
has
was
not
saying before we
learned.
got here, I would rather
Uh,
hang out with someone
It
who's
takes years.
sincere
It's a process.
and has a
She's
totally
very
different belief
early.
you
system
are
than
very
mine.
nice.
Even if I think their belief system's evil and I tell them so,
She has a
Mhm.
lot
I
to
do think
change.
social justice is evil. That's my
A
opinion.
lot.
But I know good people who that is their ideology, and I know that they're in it with sincerity and they believe that it's good.
Yeah.
And I would rather hang out with them than with people who say the beliefs that I hold to me, but
Mhm.
demonstrate with their behavior that they don't actually believe anything they're saying.
This makes so much sense. Keri just literally said that she would rather hang out with woke progressive leftists than she would with anti-woke people she doesn't like.
She literally said that?
Yeah, that's what she said. She said, I know people who are into the social justice ideology, and it's their belief, and they're good people, and I'd rather hang out with them than the people who I know through their behaviors do not believe what I believe.
Wow.
That
Okay.
I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I have no desire to hang out with progressives. I'm not saying there aren't one or two good progressives like
Right.
out there. And like I have friendly relationships. I had oh, what's his name? Oh god. Oh god. What is his name? This is gonna I know his name. What was his name? I had him on my channel.
This is probably
Spectre. I feel
Yeah,
so
I almost
bad.
said
That's okay. That's okay. I totally I feel bad that I forgot Spectre's name. But like Spectre and I are friendly, and he's a socialist. And it's like, so I don't mind being friends with these people, but am I gonna say that I would prefer to hang out with like woke progressive leftists over people in the anti-woke community that I don't like their behaviors? Like, no, I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
that at all.
I would say for me, like I don't discriminate based on politics at all. So there are, I've had friends that are far right all the way to far left, right? But I'm not like, I don't know. I don't judge, right? I just don't judge when it comes to that necessarily. I mean, obviously, I vehemently disagree with woke leftist politics, but a lot of woke leftists, it's not like they're literally transitioning their child right in front of you. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's even like somebody who's adamantly pro-choice, for example. A lot of pro-choice people, they never have an abortion. It's like it would never
Right.
even
I've
come
never had an
up.
abortion.
Right. So it's like you can't judge so harsh if it's not even happening in front of you. But if somebody like I don't know that I could be friends with somebody that was transitioning their child. Like I think if it was coming to that, I don't know that I could because it's so bad. That would just be so egregious to me.
See,
But
I don't think I could be friends with anyone that would support what's going on with the schools. I just don't. And this is, I mean, this is a direct
fair enough. Yeah.
position I've taken on Twitter because Keri Smith and Mike Harlow and Blair White and Adam Coleman and that Taylor Baby Lives Matter guy who's now trying to like be the trans drag queen fucking journalist, whatever the fuck he's doing. There are all sorts of people on the right that like they have they have overtly supported people who have said, you know what, I don't believe this school was covering up for teachers sexually molesting students, and they'll
Mm,
completely cover for the school. And I'm like, are you off your nut? You want to talk about behavior not aligning
right.
with like what they claim their stated belief system is? It's supporting the schools when they're covering up for teachers who are sexually molesting students. I don't want anything to do with those people. Nothing at all.
Right. Well, and the thing too, like I think for that as well, like there are people on all sides that I don't like. There are conservatives I don't like. There's libertarians I don't like. There's leftists I don't like, obviously, right? And anybody in between, right? There are
Mhm.
people I don't like all across the aisle, but when it comes to like Deb, for example, I don't like Deb, but I do appreciate that she did support Gab's event. She still supported it. She
Well, she
put
told us that we weren't allowed to talk about it, but she did. You know, I have to give Deb points. I have to. She did the right thing. She bitched and complained for a day and a half before she did it, but eventually she did it, and I guess it's that outcome that's all that matters.
Well, I just saw that as a good move because I understand someone not liking you. I totally get it, right? But I don't get liking the schools more than
Well, yeah.
hating you, or you know what I mean? Like, or hating you more than they hate the schools, if that makes any sense. It's like
No,
at the end of the day, it's a personal issue with you.
it does make sense, and this was exactly and precisely the point that I was making. It's like you know, if you can't put your bullshit aside to, at bare minimum, I don't even care if you promote the event or not. I really don't give a fuck.
But just be
But
quiet. Yeah.
just keep your fucking mouth shut. Don't attack the event. Don't disparage the event. Don't shit talk Gabs
Right.
for doing the event with me when, P.S., I'm the one putting up the entire platform and marketing system to be able to do this event. Like don't be disruptive. That's
Yeah.
that's like bare minimum entry level. Just keep your fucking mouth shut. It's not
Mhm.
that hard.
Yeah, I mean, and I've talked about this, like, even in my own chat on my streams and stuff. Like, people have asked me, like, what right-wing influencers do you like? And honestly, I don't really have an answer. I don't know that I like anybody. You know what I'm saying?
None.
That's just a fact. But there are some here or there that I like enough, you know. But I'm just saying, like, that doesn't change my politics. It doesn't mean that if they did something that was important, I wouldn't at the very least keep my mouth shut, because it's not personal,
Mhm.
you know? So, and even like me and you, we have political differences, but we've never had a personal beef ever.
Right. We yell each other. Sometimes you stomp away and leave the Zoom in a huff, and you know.
But it's always been political, or it's been not personal at all. Like, I've
Yeah.
never been like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even think of a context where we would personally attack each other, to be honest. It would probably seem so stupid.
But I keep being assured, Alex, that you're going to realize I'm a horrible person any minute.
Well, I may think Carlin's politics are crazy sometimes, but that has nothing to do with her as a person. And again, I do think Carlin's right about a lot of things too. She's a complex bag for me. But personally, I think Carlin's cool. I have not had a problem, you know? But, and I think it's a lot of strength to be able to have political differences and not make it personal. And it's the same thing of, if you have political similarities, you shouldn't make it personal either. Like, if you have a common political goal, you don't try to stop them just because you don't like them. And that's something that's in the anti-woke thing space, so to speak, where they don't understand. Like, I get that the politics is personal to all of us, but that doesn't mean that you have to personally like everybody.
No, you don't.
It's inevitable, you know?
People need to grow the F up, is what
Yeah.
needs to happen. They need to grow the F up.
There's a time and place, and there's a place to be professional. You know, like, I don't know, we've lost that in our culture. Like, there's no professionalism at all, and it's a problem. Because if you don't like somebody at work, are you just going to be like, could you imagine if you guys were all working in a company together and they didn't like you and they just bitched about you all day, and
I literally had to, as a coach, go. I have worked with multiple companies where the only reason they hired me was to fix personal beefs between staff members, where like one staff member was talking shit about the other one and the other one heard about it, and it created an 8-month-long feud that disrupted the entire office. Like, it's so stupid. It's so freaking stupid. Like, not everyone needs to be best friends.
Right.
You do need to be appropriate and professional, and not psychologically diagnose someone on the internet every day of your life, Keri.
And just be professional. Like, I don't know, like, have lower expectations, you know? Like, if you're friends with somebody, that's amazing. That's great. But you don't have to be, you know? And that's what I didn't like. We're just throwing out all the shade today, but we're talking about Keri anyways. But that's what I don't like about Mike, right? Like, he couldn't just go to an event that you were at. It's like, it's not personal. This isn't your birthday party, Mike. This is like a walkaway fundraising event. This is something you're supposed to be professional at.
I literally texted him that. I literally texted him that, and I was like, you need to be professional. We are here to raise money for walkaway.
Stupid. It's crazy. It's not your birthday party. It's not a hangout. It's not a kickback. Like, this is a job. This is something business related, or, you know, professional. And it's like, I've always understood that. So I've never had beef at work or whatever, because I even told, that's probably why I've gotten jobs, because I said in the interview, I'm like, I don't take things personally at work. I don't, because it's like, it's work life versus home life. And that needs to be brought back in our culture, because it is very lacking, and it doesn't make sense. Like, even if you like how they always bring woke politics into the job, like, that's so weird. I'm like, it's not, this isn't your political fundraiser. Like, this isn't a rally. This isn't your job. Like, time and place, like, go to a rally after work. Let your freak flag fly, but it's like, this is not the time and place. This is your job. It's
true.
Not, it's just, sorry for the
That's
rant.
okay. That's okay. Emily says, I started watching Soylent Green. I'm going to finish it later after the stream. I want to watch Soylent Green so bad now. You have no idea. And I was like, I have to come and stream for 18 hours with Alex. I'll watch it maybe tomorrow. Who knows?
Right.
So that's to get to that. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's a
I'm going to
tangent. You were
increase the
saying
time
if
to
you
1.5.
if there were a question, you would look to see like what shirt they're wearing and stuff. It's like, yeah, well, now I'd kind of look at how they carry themselves. But I hear what you're saying.
That's absolutely part of it too. I mean, I was kind of just spitballing a couple different ways in which you might be able to deduce, like, oh, it seems like this person is probably a Christian based on how they're presenting themselves, basically. Right. But also it is behaviors. There are also behavioral elements of gender as well.
Well, so then let's get to the gender part that you're talking about. So, and I hope you don't mind me pulling this apart just to understand it better. So when you say they are the gender that they identify as, and you validate that, I guess that's where on this issue we're going to have a little disagreement, because I no longer. I used to believe that gender was this sort of separate thing, this definite category that's separate from sex, and now I don't really view it so much as a category. I just kind of view it as aesthetic choices, or how you like to present the things that. And I know several people who have gender dysphoria, some who call themselves trans, others who, for reasons that are important to them, call themselves transsexual instead of transgender. Yeah, sure. And I do believe that they have great discomfort living life as the biological sex that their body happens to be, and that they've I'm trying to think of a couple of people on there specifically. Well, that they've tried different things, and that this is the one thing that relieves a lot of that dysphoria for them, is to present as the opposite sex. And I understand that. I don't think that means that I'm validating that they are that gender. Maybe you would say I am. In fact, I've been called a trans-enabling Pharisee recently for in some cases I will use the person's preferred pronoun. For me, it comes back to sincerity. If there's someone who, they're not trying to force me to pretend that they're the opposite sex, and they're not trying to control my language, and they're not trying to push this what I think has become very common now, this idea that gender dysphoria is normal, or something that all kids must grapple with and figure out for themselves. If they're not trying to push that on kids and push that ideology on children, then I don't have a problem respecting what they're asking. So sure, that we may disagree on that. Maybe we overlap. I don't know.
I mean, the thing that I would want to ask you is, you seem to be willing to acknowledge. Oops, sorry, I clicked something on my screen. You seem to be willing to acknowledge that there are, in fact, people who have gender dysphoria and are struggling with a very real discomfort. My question is, what should be done when children have that as well?
Well, I think for children, we should do what we've done until very recently, which is a lot of therapists were working with kids, first of all, to see if there was some underlying issue that wasn't being addressed. There is a high incidence of kids who have autism who are claiming to be trans now, or to have gender dysphoria. There are kids, sometimes not just kids, but adults who have personality disorders who are claiming to be gender dysphoric. And, it used to be that you would kind of try and go through everything else that you could to find a solution or find a root cause before you would say, okay, let's make permanent decisions regarding your body, your sex organs, your development, all that stuff.
I totally agree with you, though. So the thing is that there are going to be instances where somebody might be confused, or a child, even more specifically, might be confused in thinking that they have gender dysphoria. And this is sort of where I try to handle it, or I try to approach this with the most objective stance that I can. And objective, I mean like non-biased, which is that this is something that needs to improve when it comes to the gender clinics. Right now, it shouldn't be that you're able to just, and it largely isn't, to be clear, you shouldn't be able to just walk in and claim you're trans and then start with treatment. Usually what happens, or at least according to the actual transgender institution, the World Health Organization, I forget, it's WPATH for short, they issue the standard guidelines that should be followed, which says that there should be no permanent surgery done until you're the age of 18 minimum, that you need to have persistent gender dysphoria for a minimum of 6 months consistently before any other action besides maybe like social transition is taken. So those are standards that I think are really good. Obviously, I don't want anybody having a permanent life-altering surgery done before they're the age of 18. I would totally agree with that. And that, but that is the standard. That's actually.
Hang on. Savritz says 10-minute vid would help make sense of all of this so much. Well, thanks, Savritz. We'll look forward to watching that video in locals. But we got a long way to go, so we can't watch it tonight. I'm sorry.
the guidelines
Or at
from
least not
WPATH,
right
which is
now.
the World Transgender Organization that issues those guidelines. So the thing that my problem is, if I'm seeing that happen, if there are kids, like you said, you referenced somebody as young as 13 having a mastectomy, then I would be starkly opposed to
It
that, because
happens.
it's not
It does
some problem
happen.
with
He
trans
doesn't
people. This is
see
a
what he
failure of that
doesn't.
institution
It's
to
not
actually abide by
theoretical.
the standards
No.
that are issued in regards to trans people and gender dysphoria.
Do you agree that there's a somewhat of a that there's a social contagion now happening, where there are a lot of these kids, especially, who are saying, "Well, I'm trans too." That there's an element of picking this up from culture and your social circle and different
I think
websites,
they push it.
Tumblr,
I think
things
there
like that.
probably is,
Push
actually.
it.
I think the schools push it.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I don't actually think a lot of them mean to, but they introduce the ideas and then they talk about the ideas and then they raise up the people who agree with those ideas as being special and they get positive reinforcement. And so all of a sudden you've got kids who, as Keri said, might have autism, might just be really socially awkward, might not have any friends, might not feel good about themselves. They're like, oh, this is the problem. This is the thing that's going to solve everything.
When they also, I think there's a lot of, not to sound too weird, but I think we all know, like, there are certain kids that are, you know, I want to say sort of like teacher's pet, or they want the clout, you know, they want to be popular, right? That kind of thing, or they want the adoration of adults, right? That's very common. And I think, like, in some of the Burlington school district, I think one of the kids, I'll just say they, because I don't remember what it was, you know, what the pronouns were or whatever, but they were like, I talked to a counselor and I'm trans. And remember that one?
Yeah.
To me, that one felt like, to me, that they were trying to, it was almost an ambition for them, you know, and then they went on and they spoke about it, and, you know, they're becoming this activist and this whole thing.
And they accidentally integrate it as part of their identity. Like
'Cause they're
they
too young.
make
Yeah.
it part of their identity.
It's because they're young. So when you're that young, you know, your identity is so malleable still, because you're figuring things out. You know, you don't know. It's hard to separate things, which I do believe they would be regulated by growing up. You know, you'd figure it
Right.
out, but not if you've done permanent surgery or hormone things that will change how else you would have developed. You will develop differently. You absolutely will. And they lie. Like Hunter says, you know, puberty blockers have zero effect on a child. Zero permanent effect. That is not true. That is not true, Hunter. You are lying. I mean, every single other thing that can happen to a child can have a permanent effect, but not literal drugs and hormone pills.
That's preventing their body from developing.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course it's going to have a long-term effect. And he doesn't acknowledge those things, but anyways.
I just don't know why they can't wait until they're 18. I'm sorry, we have to wait until we're adults to do any number of things. Like cutting off body parts that are perfectly good body parts should probably be one of those things. And the same should be probably true for plastic surgery, unless there's some sort of like an emergency, or like some sort of like it's like reconstructive surgery or something, or it's like something like that. That's a different thing. But if it's purely just a vanity thing where a girl doesn't like her nose and she goes and gets a nose job when she's 16, and nose jobs don't always work out the way you think they're going to work out, to Jennifer Grey. Like, I mean, it's just like, can we just cut the fucking elective surgery under 18?
Well, especially because you're still growing. Like, your nose might still change a bit. You know, it's like you're not set yet. You're in development. People, remember how people have big ears sometimes and then they grow into them? Like,
yeah.
I mean, people look awkward. Everybody is awkward when they're a teenager.
We should really be teaching people that, like, okay, your teenage years suck. They suck.
Yeah.
They suck real bad. They suck. This should be a class in school. Being a teenager sucks. It sucks on 18 different levels. It is going to physically suck. It is going to emotionally suck. It is going to be one of the most trying, difficult times of your life. But it gets better. You just need to make it through. Don't cut off any body parts. Don't do anything crazy. Like, and I mean, honestly, like, I feel like this program, if my program was implemented in every high school in the country, just don't do anything crazy. Being a teenager sucks.
I know. And the crazy thing is, like, I remember when I was in health class, or when I was reading health, because I used to be obsessed with health like just health as a subject when I was in high school or junior high. And they said like as a teenager, your hands and feet get bigger before, and like your arms and legs grow longer before your torso catches up. So it makes you awkward, like you're more clumsy because you're growing so fast and you're changing so much that you bump into stuff and you can like literally lose your balance and shit. Like it's an awkward time. It is awkward. Like, but you will change, like your torso changes, right? And then you get your balance back and you're usually fine by the time you're like 18 or whatever. But between 12 and 18, it can be kind of weird. It's a weird time, especially 14, 15. It's pretty weird.
There needs to be a class in middle and high school called "It's Going to Be Okay." Here's the real title. It's going to suck for a while, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're changing. Your body's changing. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, it'll be okay. I agree.
All right, bot. Just don't become too much of a stalker, okay? These people stalk me all the time. All I need is Keri's birthday, and I think I know where she was born, but if you want to try to confirm that, that'd be pretty great. And if we don't get the time, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Keri's going to be thrilled about this. God.
And that's something that a lot of people in my audience don't agree with me on. I haven't really seen any data one way or the other. I know there was that one study on rapid onset gender dysphoria. We don't need to get into that one, but that was not a very good study. But I do believe, of course, that it's possible for there to be a social contagion. But this exists with various different societal problems or things, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So, for example, there has been evidence that shows that if young people are hanging out in a group chat with a bunch of people who are depressed, they are more likely to perceive themselves as being depressed.
Oh, yeah.
So there is absolutely such a thing as a social contagion. But again, this would be on the clinic to be handling this kind of a thing properly. And I think that in many cases they do, because you can look at how many people are referred to these clinics and then turned away after going through the assessment, essentially. So yeah, I think that there could be a social contagion. I would never rule that out. But the problem is a lot of the times I think people say there's a social contagion, so therefore trans people are bad. We need to stop talking about trans people. We can do both. Like, for example, if kids have an understanding of
I don't think trans people are bad.
Also a possibility of there being a social contagion, then it's not on the depressed people who actually have depression to feel ashamed or they should be stigmatized or treated poorly by society because there's a possibility of a social contagion.
He's being
Are you aware that actually, I mean, maybe you are, but a lot of the trans folks I know who speak out against transitioning children medically or surgically, that they express fear about a possible backlash because people can't distinguish them from what's becoming known as like transgenders. Now, you may not like that word transgender. You may think it's how do I get to determine who's sincere and who's not, right? But do you know that there's kind of that fear that like because this is being pushed so strongly, the transitioning kids, you may even disagree with that. Maybe you don't think it's being pushed.
Well, I think that's I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part of your question again?
Well, are you aware that there are trans? Yes. Right, and you do think there's such things as transgenders? Are you aware that there are transgender people or people with gender dysphoria, adults, who are afraid of a backlash rising because they're being lumped in with this trans movement to normalize and push trans ideology, this idea that every kid needs to grapple with their gender identity and figure out what it is, that there's that growing fear of what's going to develop because of that they can't be different, that some people can't differentiate them from transgenders, for example.
Well, usually what I would say in regards to the transgender stuff, so again, this is where I break away from the farther online lefty sort of spheres. I fight with those people almost as much as conservatives lately. And I would say that the transgenders more fall into the realm of neo pronouns and the neo genders. It really pisses me off when somebody says like, oh, I'm tree gender because I like trees. I'm like, wait, if you're going to identify as a woman, there needs to first exist the social construct of a woman as far as that identity for you to identify as. And that's usually on a spectrum of masculine and feminine. There's something you're identifying as or with, where like, how is a tree masculine or feminine? Like it doesn't even fall on a spectrum of masculinity or femininity.
Well, it is kind of masculine.
A lot of times people, if they say, well, actually it does, I would then say, I thought you guys want to lessen
I would say no.
Gender in society. Now you're putting gender on everything.
That's true. It is both. It's both. You're right.
It's non-binary.
So I would say are definitely more in line with the transgenders. What I don't think that there are people, or there might be, but I would not be comfortable trying to judge which people are transgenders if they are honestly just identifying as a man or identifying as a woman. And the other thing is that surgeries and medical intervention should not be taken in, or shouldn't be done if this person doesn't have gender dysphoria. So it's possible that somebody might identify as a woman and be comfortable with their biological makeup differing from the gender that is usually correlated with their biological makeup. And that person shouldn't be going to a clinic to have hormones or anything because they're already comfortable with it. The medical intervention is much more in regards to gender dysphoria specifically. And of course, if somebody has gender dysphoria and that's medically documented, then I would definitely not be able to say that they were then a transgender because there's medical proof at that point that they actually do have some kind of ailment that demands medical intervention. So a lot of it's just kind of like trying to separate those concepts. Yeah, I recognize there's a lot of possibilities for.
So like I said, I'm a bit older than you. A lady's not going to tell her age.
That's okay.
But
Keri's older than me.
In the 90s, we had a couple of social contagions. One of them was anorexia, which is a very real thing, obviously, eating disorders that affect people. But what I mean by social contagion is that it reached a point of public consciousness where people were talking about it. It was entertainment. There was an episode of Ally McBeal about it. And suddenly people who had never, bless you, who had never grappled with that before kind of adopted it. You saw a lot more young girls in particular adopting that and picking up this behavior and saying, yes, I'm anorexic too, or I'm bulimic too, and adopting. And there was this explosion of eating disorder cases. From what I recall, this was one of those examples of social contagion. I think something similar happened with cutting, where it reached this critical mass of in the public square, where enough young people had heard about it, where it became this thing of like, yes, I cut too, and then there's more people doing it.
She's having a good moment
and
right
I'd say
now.
probably I put Satanic Panic
I
in there.
agree.
So in the 80s, 90s.
I remember that. Well, I don't remember it, but I
You don't
read up
remember,
on it.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. But there were all these people. It coincided with I think it was the publication of a book about what at the time was called multiple personality disorder, and now they call it dissociative identity disorder. But it's where somebody like Sybil, like the book Sybil, where he's like, I've got all these different personalities in my head. And so around that time, the idea of being able to have memories that you had buried or then retrieved, recovered memories became.
Go ahead.
Keri needs to write a book. Like, she needs to stop tweeting about you.
If only Keri had more time in her life to write a fucking book. What could she stop doing, Alex?
She could stop writing about you and actually write a book about this. That is brilliant, Keri, to combine or to compare it to the anorexia of, the old, not super old, but like
that was a really good point.
And the cutting of millennials. And now it's this. That is brilliant. She is so dead on. And that is an original thought, in my opinion. She came up with that.
It's so aggravating to me that Keri doesn't focus her energy more positively. Keri is a wonderful writer. She is a really good writer. She needs to write a book.
That was brilliant, honestly. I don't always say that, obviously, but that was a brilliant connection. I had never thought of that. That was really good. So, points for Keri.
Yep.
Popular. And around that same time, there were all these cases, one after the other, of kids at daycare centers and stuff saying, I have these recovered memories of satanic abuse, and there were all these satanic rituals happening, and there was an explosion of it in the news. My point being, I've seen social contagions before where something hits critical mass and public consciousness, and then there are lots of young people exposed to it for the first time, an idea they've never had before, that a small percentage of a fraction or what have you, or a small percentage of people dealt with, that you're introducing it to the mainstream, and now you have all these new cases. Why? I think the trans activists would say, well, the reason we're seeing an explosion of kids now saying they're trans is because we've reached a place in society where it's safe to do so now. And they've
always, it's kind of in the middle. I would say it's
okay.
There is definitely more acceptance to the point that I would expect to see an uptick of people who are comfortable coming out as trans. But I don't know if I would say society is completely there, because there are still also a lot of problems and discrimination that trans people face almost on a day-to-day basis. I mean, just the statistics are pretty disappointing, for sure, that when you read about how they're more likely to be victimized by violent crime or violent assault, they're more likely to be homeless, they're more likely to be just put in bad situations. Usually there's high rates of drug use. People will bring that up because of the negative circumstances they're sort of pushed into, whether it's getting kicked out of their house or something. So yeah, like my question for you though would be that, let's go back to what you said, that there was a bit of a social contagion with anorexia. So what do you think should have been done about that? Because I know you will agree with me that anorexia is a real illness. It is a real problem, and people that are really anorexic need to be treated. They need to get help immediately. So, like, how does this apply necessarily to the trans issue? Because again, even if there were a social contagion like there was with anorexia, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden anorexic people are bad, or anorexic people are insane or degenerate or something, or nobody should ever know about anorexia.
Correct. I think that's a great question. That's the kind of question that makes you think and reach, right? I think the difference is, if we're trying to compare,
that was condescending,
the way
Keri.
these two things were treated or have been treated. One difference is with the anorexic person.
It was.
I don't think there's as
very
much
condescending.
of a move to make anorexia your identity. Now that's changed a little in the past few years. Now I see people kind of incorporating whatever mental health issues they have into their identity, such that I think it's dangerous, because they start to think this is part of who I am, which means they're less likely.
It's not definitely not a one-to-one comparison, because
I
gender
agree.
can be a form of identity, where anorexia is not an identity; it's an illness.
I agree. So, but I do think there's more of a, when it comes to, if a kid is saying I'm trans or I'm gender dysphoria, there is more of this push to immediately validate. And that's one difference with anorexia, where it's like, we don't tell the anorexic person, yes, you are fat. You're right. we don't validate what they see when they look in the mirror.
Right.
That's a great
Does
fucking
that make
point.
sense? Or
It
I
makes
know
sense,
it's not
but I
a.
also think that there's a really crucial follow-up here, because I've heard the exact same argument made in regards to schizophrenic people, that you don't take a schizophrenic into the office and then say, yeah, the radio
Yep.
really is talking to you. And that's true, because that does harm to the individual. Where what we have right now in the available research is, when you have a child who actually does have gender dysphoria, not somebody who's just, you know, my friend thought it was funny, so I want to be this way, but who genuinely has gender dysphoria, validating their gender affirming care is what it's called, does it benefits that individual. It makes their life better. It lowers their likelihood of committing suicide. It brings their cognitive functionality back up to similar rates of the general public in many circumstances. So I hear that argument a lot, and I
would agree with that.
From, but there's a difference, right? Because you would not validate an anorexic person because they would starve themselves.
And I'm sorry, we don't know the long-term consequences of this.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what the long-term consequences are when parents raise trans kids to believe they are the opposite gender from the time they're little kids, and so that's all they know in the world and that's all they believe, and then they go to the doctor's office and they don't tell them they're trans. And what happens then? And why would they tell them that they were trans if it's just all about like affirming who they are? Like the kid would have no reason to even think that like this would be like that it wouldn't even occur to them to say to the doctor that they're trans. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think too, it's, I don't know. I have a hard time with it, because I've heard of a lot of studies where the suicide rates don't change, where there's almost no difference, you know, and it's probably because it's depression, you know, it's called depression. Like, you need to really, my policy of it is it needs to be the last thing that you do, because it's permanent. And it's a lifelong battle, basically, you know? And so you don't want to engage in that battle if you don't absolutely have to. I do think that there is a very small amount of people that do need to transition, but I think a lot of people, it's lumped in with depression, with anxiety, apparently autism, right? All these other issues. And you need to visit every other thing first and make sure everything else is clear. Because if your depression clears and then your dysphoria goes away, then you were just depressed, you know, which is a different course of treatment. And, you know, a lot of the left and stuff, they get too touchy with it, where it's like, I have to affirm. Like, no, like she said, you don't always affirm somebody has like anorexia, for example. You don't. You have to look at it deeper, and it takes a lot of investigation, and there should be a let's avoid this if we can mindset, just because it's hard. Not that you don't deserve love and that it won't help, right? I do think in some cases it does help. But with a lot of people, if it's not necessary, and especially if you're a child and you have no idea what you're signing up for, like, this is just wrong, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Metastep says, check my previous comment. All right, Metastep, let's see. A woman already wrote about what she's talking about. Jordan Peterson posted part of his interview with her today. I mean, I think that's great, and people should definitely check that out. But that doesn't mean Keri shouldn't write a book. Like, as many people as possible, because people are going to learn from different teachers, right? Like, some people are going to learn from that woman. People would learn from Keri. Some people would learn from, God forbid, me. Like, you know, whoever wants to teach these things should be teaching these things, because like we need as many voices out there as possible teaching people about these things, because not everyone is going to learn from the best one. Kind of scared to ask the question I have. Carlin likes to block anyone with a different opinion. Alex, do I block people with a different opinion?
Just be respectful and don't call Carlin fat. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
The rule is that you are not allowed to be a dick on my channel, and you are not allowed to insult me. If you would like to ask a question, you are more than welcome to ask a question. But the moment you start insulting or calling names or being disruptive, you are going to get blocked. So give it your best shot. Tom J says, I think Konstantin Kisin is making the U.S. rounds for his book. Going to bring him on? No, I'm not going to bring him on, but that's no shade to him. Like, it's just not, I actually like him, but it's just not what I'm doing right now. And he is going to go on much bigger channels than mine. He's going to be just fine. But I appreciate the super chat. All right.
And die. by not validating somebody that actually is trans, then you are actually doing harm in that case, because you're making it more likely that they will commit suicide. That 100% raises the likelihood of them committing suicide. There are also a lot. I'm trying not to.
I agree with you. No, I actually agree with you, because I know, and I'm trusting my friends who have gender dysphoria, who've told me it helped me to start to live as or present as the opposite sex. I
like
trust
social
them.
transition.
How am I to say it didn't help them? I don't know. But what I would argue with is that we're doing a lot of harm currently with kids who are not gender dysphoric, truly, who are caught up in the social contagion, who might have underlying issues where they don't feel like they fit in.
But that if they are victims, sorry,
I just finish this point? And I think that those, because of watching the stories of people who detransition, which for some reason seems to affect more women than men. There's more biological women who are saying, I regret transitioning. You know, those videos that you can watch, anybody can watch them on YouTube, Reddit, that the harm that we're allowing them to do to themselves as kids is a great harm. And is there not some middle ground where if a kid comes to a gender clinic, you don't immediately validate and say, you're right, you must be this other gender? Is there not some middle ground where it's like, let's pull this apart? Like, shouldn't the therapist explore underlying issues first and figure out what's really going on before they tell the parents, start calling the kid the other pronoun immediately, start, validating immediately? What I'm seeing, that's what I'm seeing. I know it's anecdotal, but I'm in a lot of Facebook groups that are for parents. One of the biggest ones is called Parents Supporting Parents of Trans Kids. I think it's like 17,000 people or something. It's pretty large. I'm in some other ones. And I just kind of like to see what's happening in this area. And there's a lot of this sort of immediate validation without considering any other avenue.
Well, this is assuming that they're going in and essentially getting a diagnosis, right? Because again, you wouldn't have any kind of medical intervention if you didn't have gender dysphoria. So if you had somebody like a kid who was genuinely a victim of social contagion, and they said, my friend is trans, so I think that's cool, that wouldn't qualify them to have any kind of medical intervention whatsoever. So there's that. And then as far as
they don't say it that way.
That's not what they
would,
say.
again,
They actually coach the kids, coach each other. Hang on.
Takes time. That usually you have
the kids coach each other on what to say. There are whole forums where kids are coaching other kids on what to say in order to get put on hormones.
Yes, exactly.
Multiple therapists that way in. You usually have family doctors or therapists. Again, this isn't like my little Timmy play with a Barbie doll, so now we got to take them into the gender clinic and have their penis cut off. Like, this is a much larger and long, drawn out process where, again, you have to be showing persistent gender dysphoria for a minimum of 6 months. But
what about with the parents? So like in this group, there's an orthodoxy where they are told in the group for parents, these parents supporting other parents, and the parents who don't behave in this way, in the way that they're told to in the group, get booted, so they don't get to hear more of the advice. But the advice is very, our way or the highway, and it's immediate validation before there's a diagnosis or anything. I'll give you just one quick example.
Well,
and maybe you agree with.
Like?
Well, here's an example. Maybe you'll say, okay, well, that's just one example, but I do agree with you on it. Or maybe you'll say, well, that's just one example and I don't agree. I don't know.
Well,
but one example, there was a recent article published by Christina Buttons and Colin Wright about one of the parents.
Can you pause it?
Yes, sorry.
There's another point too that Hunter doesn't understand, and maybe he understands it all too well, but there are a lot of gay men that maybe are a bit more masculine, or they present more typically, and they will assert that they're straight all their life, but they're not. And so just because you say the right things, it doesn't mean it's real. And it could be just as true for trans. And it's very likely as a child, right? Because you're not going to think about all these consequences and stuff. You just don't. I don't think a lot of these people remember what it's like to be a kid. I really don't think they remember.
I know. I agree with you. And I also think like kids don't think about long-term consequences.
They don't.
Again, they like the emotion, the logic reason function of their brain is not developed yet. The emotional function of their brain develops before the logic reason function, and the logic reason function doesn't come until they're in their 20s.
Right.
And so they're not thinking long term. They think that everything that they feel at 14, 15 years old is exactly how they're going to feel for the rest of their lives, because they also don't have the life experience to know that sometimes you have good times and sometimes you have bad times. And when you have bad times, yes, they suck, but they don't last forever.
Right. I mean, dead on.
Yeah. And it's sad, and they should be getting guidance. They should be like, give them someone to talk to, put them into therapy, let them dress however they want, but don't put them on medication. And I mean, any medication, like, I'm sorry, like ADHD medication. I know that a very small percentage of people probably need it. It is way overprescribed. It is bad. It is doing permanent effing damage.
Right.
And they kept the identity anonymous and everything. The parent came in, I think the daughter was 4 or 5, and said, here's a book that I gave my daughter for Christmas, and it's all about gender identity and how you can be born in the wrong body and being a good ally. And in the comments, somebody said something supportive, like, "Oh, it's so great to see a parent supporting their kid, their young kid, right?" And the mom said, "No, my daughter's not trans. My daughter's just an ally." Yeah, 1 short month later, after having introduced her daughter to this, she posted in the group again. "My daughter told me today she's a boy, and I'm worried. Did I do something to plant this idea in her head?" And immediately in the comments, she was sort of piled on by people saying, "Why are you referring to your son as she?" It was immediate.
But it would depend again on like, I mean, like, I would want to know where it went from there. Like, is it seriously just somebody saying like, can you use different pronouns or call me by a different name? Because I mean, I think about this like somebody has a biological name, right? The name they're born with on their birth certificate, and they might ask you to refer to them as their name. There are people online who ask you to use a different name.
Go ahead.
If it was Hunter's kids, he would not affirm right away, 100%. But
well, that'll be interesting to see if that happens, won't it?
I guarantee it, because a lot of people on the left, this is total shade to the left. They have different rules for them and different rules for everyone else. And he is definitely that person. If it was his kids, he would definitely not affirm. I guarantee you, 100%. Because he would know. But he's okay with everybody else doing it, and he thinks everybody else should do it, but not him. Every time.
Yeah, so the idea of like changing names or dressing differently or even using different pronouns.
Parents love their kids, Hunter.
Because at the end of the day, if they're not actually trans, right? Like what? Okay, so they just go back to not having that name. Like there's no medical intervention. That would be the concerning part of things. Is if there was some form of medical intervention happening, which again wouldn't be possible if this person didn't have gender dysphoria. And again, if they did, that would have to be a persistent thing. It couldn't be like they had gender dysphoria for a week. So it's not.
Doctors
exactly
don't always follow guidelines.
I don't have
Hunter.
a problem with name changes, by the way. I mean, as I said, I'm someone. Lots of people go by nicknames. I've gone by a nickname my whole life, and I also have friends. I have a friend from Korea who's changed her name 4 times. And
he doesn't have any
process and kept deciding. No, I like. I think for a while she was winning. She really liked the Wonder Years, and now and then she really fell in love with a different movie star. But anyway, the point being, I've known her by 4 names. When she finally got her green card, it was a different name. I don't care about that. But as a parent who is immediately using the opposite sex pronouns, that might be where you and I disagree. I don't think it's good to immediately start saying he for your 4-year-old daughter and him. And I think because what you're doing with that quote unquote validation is you're enforcing and you're
brainwashing
them.
Saying
this must be true.
Right.
And I would say, no, let's wait. And we're gonna do therapy and we're gonna figure this out before I immediately push you down this path. Because then there's also
going to get diagnosed, they should absolutely go to therapy. Again, like there wouldn't be any type of medical intervention. People ask me what I mean when I say medical intervention. The medical intervention, I just mean puberty blockers. And then of course anything more than that is really not supposed to even take place, especially nothing like a
he was pushing for it hard when he debated me.
So
of course
I see it is like, why not just play it safe? Because here's what we know. We know that gender dysphoria is a real thing. We also know that using someone's different names or pronouns has no permanent, long-lasting effect on them. But what we do know
is does have permanent, long-lasting effect on them, Hunter.
And again, by validate, I don't mean take them to get a surgery. I mean validate them just pronouns, their name, or whatever. Then you raise the likelihood of them committing suicide. That is just a fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is when trans people are accepted by their parents, their likelihood of committing suicide decreases by a staggering amount. So the way that I like to play it is, why do it that way? Why not be better safe than sorry?
Well, my opinion is the same in terms of why not play it safe. What's different is we have different definitions of what's playing it safe. Because why not play it safe and not immediately validate?
Well, what would immediately validate? What's the harm?
Well, in the case of that woman, for example, who immediately is being told, call your 4-year-old he, right? I think that's potentially very harmful for the child. Much more harmful than waiting and trying to figure out if this is a phase, something the kid picked up from you, something the kid picked up from social group or school, or
I
like
agree.
I would rather wait. I don't think you're doing, because what if you're pushing that kid down a path of they're trying to please parent, and parent has already introduced this idea to them, and you get down that rabbit hole then of them not wanting to disappoint. Some of the detransitioner stories I've seen are girls who are saying, it was so hard for me to detransition because I had invested so much into this, the whole sunken cost thing, right? Where you've gotten your whole friends and family on board. In some cases, you become sort of a poster child for if you have like a parent who's really into publicly doing posts where their identity becomes wrapped around being the parent of a trans kid. You've got all these different people invested and you've made a big deal out of it. And maybe in some cases it was hard to get them to support you. And then to say, I made a mistake, how hard that is because you're down so far down that path. And one of the girls I talked to actually interviewed someone.
Hunter's not even listening to what she's saying.
She said in her case, it wasn't just that she'd invested so much. It was also that when she started talking to her therapist about how she thought she was wrong and she wanted to detransition, her therapist discouraged her. Her therapist said, no, this is the phase.
That's the problem though, is like that. And that's although it is anecdotal, I'm not just gonna like write it off and hand wave it as anecdotal. That would be a complete violation. Like if the therapist is encouraging them to be any form of an identity that they are not. Even if they're saying they're not trans, they think that they're actually just cis like everybody else, or like the general public. Then if the therapist encourages them to pursue some kind of a treatment still, that would be a massive violation. And that therapist should be fired immediately. Like if that story is true, they should absolutely be fired immediately. But the
Most
problem
therapists work for
again,
themselves, Hunter.
I don't know why you would not just play it safe in
They have their
regards
own
to
practice.
if you have a child who's like 9 or 10, right? Like, let me just read this quick blurb here. This comes from the Endocrine Society. So this isn't like a lefty woke, BuzzFeed.com here. This is a very respected medical institution. It says for a child who's not yet reached puberty, trans health experts recommend seeking mental health support. So they should
There just came out new guidelines for medical education this week where they are thoroughly integrating social justice into medical school education. This is the society that accredits medical schools released new guidelines where they have to integrate it into medical school. They have to integrate it into the residency, and faculty members have certain qualifications that they need to meet. So to say that a generic medical website isn't woke at all is fundamentally not true. It is very literally being corrupted as we speak by, like, the entire medical establishment is corrupted.
Yes, and there may be a point when we're already there, where a therapist or a doctor may have to affirm in order to keep their job, and they're going to care more about their own job usually than your kid. It's just a fact.
Well, guys, please mount that like button for me if you haven't already. This is Sassy Saturday. We do this some Saturdays, most Saturdays. And make sure you subscribe to Alex's channel if you have not already. It's pinned at the top of the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely going to therapy, because even prior to disclosing a gender identity that is different than the one they were assigned at birth, I kind of hate that term, trans youth can experience symptoms including depression, social isolation, and suicidal ideation. While medical guidelines advise that prepubescent children do not undergo hormone interventions, they state that allowing trans youth to socially transition, which can include taking on a new name and wearing different style of clothes, can greatly benefit a child. So for me, I would say, if this is nothing permanent, and this is even what the medical experts are suggesting, why would I not want to play this safe?
Again, I do want to play it safe. Again, we have different definitions of what that means.
Right,
so
but
this is sort of
your problem is that you're worried that not
Hunter's
playing,
getting
or your version of playing it
triggered.
safe is don't
He's getting
validate them,
triggered.
where
Coming.
That has a far
I want to
greater
see what Hunter
likelihood of
says
leading to a harm.
after Keri leaves the stream.
I don't believe that's true. I don't believe we know all the harms of immediately validating children because we're currently doing it. We don't have all these longitudinal studies yet of what this is going to do.
I told you,
he
reaches a point where he goes full leftist once he realizes he can't
Hang on.
change his mind.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
He reaches a point when he goes full leftist once he realizes he can't change her mind. So that may be happening now, where he's realizing he can't change her mind. So now he's gonna go.
See, Keri thought she could come in and just be nice and just she's using Keri's basically being a social worker right now. She's asking questions to lead the conversation, but she's leading it right down the path that she wants it to go in. She doesn't realize that she can't change his mind either.
Yeah.
I mean, she's doing a good job. I'm not knocking the job Keri's doing. Like,
great.
she's playing it very well, but like her mind is not open to being changed. His mind is not open to being changed. But neither of them know that the other's mind is not open to being changed.
That's interesting. I knew I couldn't change his, so I went in knowing.
So. Oh yeah, you didn't buy into it at all. You were just like, whatever. Multi-Drider says, on a similar note, I'm studying for nursing. You think I should find a different job with wokeness? Nursing is a really tough profession. Nursing, of all professions, and this is true, of all professions, nursing has the highest rate of workplace bullying in it of any other profession. It's really, really bad. Now, that's not to say that like you can make a lot of money as a nurse. There are lots of different opportunities as a nurse. You can you will always be able to get a job anywhere.
That's true.
But just be really conscious that you are going into a cutthroat environment, and it's a hard job, but it's a necessary job, and I bet it's a really rewarding job too,
and honorable, and
very
you do
honorable.
Well, so just go. Definitely be professional. Don't take things too personal, and you can always leave too. That's a good thing about it too. If it gets to be too bad, you can go to a different hospital or a different state even.
That's exactly right. You will always be able to find another job in nursing. Always.
It's a good choice. It's just tough, but it's good.
Yep.
Just masking kids, but having them spend 2 years for very small kids seeing adults, seeing everyone around them in masks. We don't know all of the repercussions yet. And in that way, I think we're kind of using a whole generation of kids as guinea pigs to see what
You can
happens
really get
if
triggered
you
with
immediately
that.
tell them. Can I ask you this? If a kid came to you, that mom, by the way, the one who I was talking about, I'll send you this article so you can read it later. But that mom who gave her kid the book, was like, no, my daughter's not trans, she's just a good ally. And then a month later, it's like, oh, well, now my daughter says she's a boy. In the comments, the article did follow the post to see what happened over a period of time. And the mom was sort of arguing, but also acquiescing, I would say, to some of the commenters. But one of the things she said to them is, well, I also gave her a book about, she also just came to me and said she's Black. And I had given her a book about diversity and race and stuff. And I'm not going to validate that, right? And so my question to you is, I guess, if a kid came to you and said they were a different race than they were, would you immediately say, well, yes, you are Black? And do you?
No, because although the way in which we categorize race is like those are socially constructed categories, I don't think that the ability to just identify with a race is anywhere comparable to the ability to identify with a gender. Even furthermore, there's no evidence
Why?
that the refusal to validate something like that leads to any tangible harm, where we have the opposite when it comes to the gender thing. Now, in this specific example, I'm not going to lie, if what you're telling me is true, that sounds like a pretty impressionable young girl that read some books and got some ideas in her head and decided to run with it. But is it also not possible that
Hunter, you have young kids.
I know.
Does he not think his kids are impressionable?
I guess not.
All kids are impressionable. Up until the time they're 8 years old, they suck in everything. We have these things in our brain called mirror neurons, where it will very literally pick up everything that is going on in the situation around you and mirror it in your brain. They pick up everything.
You you didn't scare me that bad, but you kind of, I do plan on having kids, like I said, by surrogate. So I'm going to have all the conservative and I'll deal with it every day. I love it. Bring it. But, and the turf free, I guess, too. I'll piss everyone off. But the thing is, like, I will be homeschooling them until they're at least 8 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not going to trust anybody. I don't trust anybody with them. Because you said that. And I'm like, and I also experienced, like, I remember being that young and it's true. And I'm like, I'm so grateful I wasn't in a public school when I was that young. I'm so grateful.
It's really, really bad. And teach them languages too. Languages. You teach those kids Chinese. China's gonna red dawn our asses at some point.
Probably. Well, oh gosh, I'll do that too. But yeah, but the point is, I'm gonna homeschool them. Yeah. So you scared me.
Good. Homeschooling at a younger age is more important than homeschooling at an older age.
I can teach them how to read and write. Like, that's not that hard. It's like basics anyways. It's not like I'm teaching them, calculus 2 or something.
And there are going to be so many amazing resources by the time you have a kid. Yeah. Like, there are going to be so many amazing homeschool resources, like way more than there are right now.
That's true. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, maybe not that specific example, but for some people, they read a book like this and they realize, holy shit, that's what I've been experiencing. That is what I've been feeling. And this is finally putting it into words, what I was experiencing. Like,
yes, I do think that's, I think that's possible.
Sorry, let me just throw in a quick anecdote. So like I struggle with OCD, obsessive compulsion disorder. And it wasn't until I was much older that I realized there was a whole other level of OCD, which included like intrusive thoughts led by a lot of anxiety and compulsions and whatnot. And it wasn't until somebody mentioned something actually at work that I looked it up and I started reading it and I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what I've been dealing with. So it's conceivable that maybe somebody is reading a book or learning about these concepts and that actually does apply.
When they're an adult.
I agree.
So possible?
Yes, of course. I agree. That's possible. I just think there's a higher, and this is maybe the root of our disagreement again, is I think there's a much higher incidence of people being impressionable and sort of identifying with something that may not be their root problem, but it's trendy and you're going to get immediate support and validation by saying, this is the issue, this is the root of my issue. Like if you're a girl and you're tomboyish and you don't, you don't fit in with a society's idea of like the correct way to be a girl, to discover, and maybe you have other underlying issues. Maybe you have autism, or maybe there's problems. Exactly, but I think a lot of the therapists have been corrupted. I mean,
therapy is completely woke. The American Psychiatric Association was one of the key organizations to lobby for vaccine mandates. They're still doing this woke bullshit today. They actually have the American Psychiatric Association, and I know this because I have a spy in the American Psychiatric Association, and he covertly got me into a meeting. I was in their diversity meeting. I witnessed their whole diversity review being presented to them, and it wasn't actually like it was crazy, but it wasn't like outlandish. outlandish crazy, so I never said anything about it because I didn't want to blow my cover. But like I know exactly what they're doing and exactly what they're planning because I saw it laid out to me in their meeting. The American Psychological Association is exactly the same way. So therapy is completely corrupted. It's not something that we should rely on.
I agree.
Yeah, that's sad. Tom J, I work in all sorts of pharma/hospitals for a decade, then finance and tech. Almost everything is corrupt. At this point, I only care about protecting kids from all of it, including Hunter. Everything is corrupt. I mean, you're basically right.
Yeah.
Everything is corrupt, and people have gotten really awful in the past couple of years. They've gotten really awful because of the pandemic stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do when everything falls apart because woke isn't functional. So it will die.
I live in New Hampshire. I'm going to be fine.
I know, but you're still going to be affected.
I'm going to be governor. I'm going to have my own minion. I'm going to have my own domain. Will you move to New Hampshire if I get elected governor, Alex?
Maybe if you gave me a job, maybe I would.
I'll give you a job. I will absolutely participate in cronyism. Absolutely. 100%.
I'll be your press secretary, I said.
Will you be my press secretary?
Yeah,
I would totally do that. I really would. Okay, Alex, press secretary anointed. Congratulations. We'll have the ceremony at Porkfest next year.
Oh my gosh.
There's a therapist. You should actually talk to this guy.
I think I'm going to have to push back on this a little bit because although it is true that some therapists don't do their job well, of course there's such a thing as a corrupted therapist. This idea that like they're all corrupted is just
he's like, I got a
level of
it is true, Hunter. You're a liar.
I think I might think the majority of them are.
That's what I can't get
Keri's
because
correct.
like therapists are required by law to be abiding by certain standards.
No.
And if the Endocrine Society is saying that
that's
these
not
people
true.
need to be seeking mental health support from a therapist.
That is not true at all. I mean, yes, are there certain standards by law, but not related to what Hunter is talking about. It's one of those things where, like, are they required to abide by some stuff? Well, sure, but not related to this at all in any way. What is produced in New Hampshire? Guns.
That's funny.
Guns. I don't know. I mean, we have there are a whole bunch of tech companies in Manchester. There's a lot of that. I don't know. There's lots of stuff here. We have really good like corporate like environments. We actually a lot of like corporate You know what's headquartered here, Alex? Is the Lind truffles? The truffles that you get at like the mall that are in that store where you go in and there are like all these things that you can like sample. Lind.
Oh.
Lind. Yeah, that's based out of New Hampshire.
I used to love their chocolate before I realized it had problems.
It does it has a lot of problems.
It's unhealthy. Before I realized how unhealthy it is.
But it's really, their truffles are really like good.
It's good, but it's just not healthy at all. But
it's chocolate.
I love their white chocolate. There's healthier chocolate though.
I love white chocolate. White chocolate is my favorite chocolate. It's not even real chocolate, but it's my favorite chocolate.
I kind of want some now, but I'm not gonna have any.
Then that process also would include the snuffing out of maybe there is another issue here. Maybe you are autistic and you don't quite understand what it means to have an internal perception of yourself a certain way in regards to gender.
They should be doing that, yes.
But that's
farmland in New
Hampshire.
Based
on what my understanding
there is
here.
a lot of farmland.
And I know that there are scary stories about the opposite happening, but
you need to produce.
For every story you have of somebody who said, my therapist, they didn't even ask any questions. They just instantly started pumping me full of irreversible drugs. There are dozens of stories from people that say, I've been suffering from gender dysphoria for years on end, and no matter what I do, I'm not able to get a diagnosis from my therapist.
So I hear you. I disagree, but I hear you. I just shared with you that article. If you want to read it later, I'll put it in the chat too. I was wrong. Apologies. It was a 7-year-old, not a 4-year-old. There's a lot of them I've been reading, but anyway, there you go. But that's for later. Can I just share with you? Maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't. I interviewed this therapist recently, Jake Whiskerchin.
Keri is getting frustrated too.
It's spelled like whisker chin.
Yeah,
that's how you remember it.
He's very
Whiskerchin. That's how you say it. Anyway, one of the things he was telling me about is that therapists are now. He's a therapist. He's like, we are told now by the APA that not only should we validate
this could get fiery
saying what the person is saying who's under treatment when it comes to gender identity, but that we need to validate whatever diagnosis they're saying. So for example, he was saying if you have a patient who is displaying characteristics of, let's say, borderline personality disorder, and you start to broach the subject with them that this might be your diagnosis, and they say, well, I don't like that diagnosis. No, I'm here for depression. I want you to treat me for depression. That they're now being encouraged to validate that own, like that self-diagnosis.
Right.
I have not heard that. I'm trying to look it up actually right now. APA therapists validate any mental illness.
I don't
if that were
Keri, what do you think about Twitter diagnoses of mental illness? Should I take your diagnosis on Twitter as a serious diagnosis of my mental health and go to my therapist and be like, people on Twitter say that I have narcissistic personality disorder. Please help cure me.
Oh,
God.
gosh.
The case, like this would be a gross overstep of the whole point. Maybe people are pointing out actually made a good point in your chat. I think I might be conflating therapists and psychologists a little bit, but again, psychologists also are there to act as a therapist. The only difference is they have the power to also diagnose and prescribe. So if that were actually the case, then that would be
prescribe medication.
That would just be way over the top.
Cannot,
I'm definitely going to look into it, but I don't see anything right now. I'm looking for it, and I don't see.
If you ever want to talk to him, I'll introduce you because you guys might have a very interesting conversation. But also, kudos for being able to follow my chat. I'm focusing too much on listening to you, and I can't. I'm the kind of person I can't do a phone call when I'm driving, or I'll go the wrong way. So I'm kind of like that with this conversation. I'm like, I can't look over there right now. I'll get distracted.
Oh, that explains so much, Keri. Thank you. Multi-Drider says, I already work in group home, so I'm aware of bullying in all parts of healthcare. I'm just wondering if I should consider a different career with wokeness. Everything's woke. Everything's woke. So don't worry so much about like what's woke and what's not, because you're going to find wokeness unless you are self-employed, which you can be as a nurse. To be honest, you can be a consulting nurse, you can be a traveling nurse. True. Like you know, so like nursing, and again, like you do whatever makes you happy, but you have so many different options with nursing. There's so much you can do, and you can make a lot of money, and you can do really well with it, and you're doing something really good for people. If you're a good nurse, there are so many shitty nurses out there. There's so many horrible nurses out there.
Yeah, there are good ones.
So, I mean, I wouldn't try to dissuade you from being a nurse just because you think it's going to be woke. That there's
a huge shortage too.
Yeah, there's a big shortage. You're always going to have a job. You're always going to make money. There are much worse professions to go into. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
But anyway, okay. Well, we kind of went down this trans rabbit hole for a while. I think we identified some of the places we agree, which it surprised me. We agree on more than I thought we would. And then the places where we disagree. Can I ask you about one of the things you said when you started to change your views? You said back when you were younger and you did this, you talked a lot about cultural issues, and I do as well. I have a certain opinion about BLM that you may not share. I don't think that they're sincerely trying to do anything for Black people. I do think a lot of people who support them are, a lot of the people who give money are, a lot of the people who show up for the protests are, but I think the people who are leading it, the architects of pushing this organization, I just don't think they're sincere, and I don't think that they're actually constructive. I don't think they're doing anything positive. You probably disagree with all of that, but maybe you didn't used to. Can you tell me about your shifting opinions on BLM?
Sure. Actually, I apologize for jumping back to this rabbit hole one more time.
That's okay.
I did find something that seems to contradict the story that guy told you, because I have an APA document here from 2021 giving the guidelines for psychologists, and it says psychologists are mindful of the principles and importance of evidence-based practice. Psychologists strive to maintain.
Hunter, psychologists do not have to follow those guidelines. They are guidelines. They are not mandates. They do not have to follow those guidelines.
And enhance their knowledge of the research. Psychologists endeavor to conduct assessments that are appropriate for the setting. So, I mean, these are just 3 of the guidelines thus far. There are 10 of them entirely. And none of these say anything in regards, maybe I'm looking at the wrong page, so I would be more than happy to see what that guy was talking about, but nothing here has anything to do with like, you must validate this person. In fact, it seems to be the opposite. They're talking about conducting assessments and being mindful of evidence-based practice.
There are no
mean that if somebody
assessments
said,
to conduct
I'm depressed, so now start giving me depression
in this
meds,
area that I know of.
Completely against the APA guidelines.
Okay.
So I could be, maybe I'm reading the wrong page, but this is what it appears to be, at least according to last year.
Well, feel free to drop that in the chat for people to read. But I do think you should talk to him, because I'm not the person to. This is something he was telling me about during an interview, so I'm not really the person. That's not my field of expertise, and I'm not prepared to say, here's where you can find what it is he's talking about. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I could very easily also be wrong, because I mean, this is just the guidelines I found. APA guidelines on evidence-based psychological practice in healthcare.
Oh, cool. For fuck's sake!
But,
this is the problem with
tell me about your
evolution
of ideas when it comes
like
to
on the fly. He doesn't even know what he's looking at.
Yeah, so it's kind of like.
Yeah,
I know it's probably kind of cringy. I'm always like, oh, there's multi-layers here, but like there is such a thing as like the BLM company or the organization, like BLM Incorporated. And I don't really follow much of that organization. The only thing that I know is that they seem to be honestly really scummy. And I heard briefly about that controversy with the one lady using the donations to apparently purchase a house. I haven't looked into that anymore, so I could be wrong there. But
I think it was 5.
They use it for Biden's campaign too.
Yeah. Either way, the company in and of itself, I don't support that at all. I haven't done really very much research into it, because I mostly write it off as being kind of irrelevant. What I do support is the BLM movement. So when we had the issue with George Floyd, for example, you saw millions of Americans out on the streets protesting and marching for a cause that some of them believed in. There were probably some that didn't really know what they were doing there, but that I do support, because I think that at the end of the day, the movement of BLM is trying to bring attention to a very real issue right now that is affecting Black people disproportionately, and that is this issue of systemic racism. The problems with certain social systems or institutions in place that, although there's no malintent, they deliver results that are disproportionately and negatively affecting Black people. So that too is kind of a complicated one, but that's like a very real issue that I can appreciate that BLM tried to, in some instances, to bring attention to those problems. And the last thing I'll say is the rioting and the looting is like completely fucked up. I've already said that anybody that's rioting or looting is like a huge piece of shit, and that people totally have the right to defend their private property even with lethal force against rioters or looters or anyone that has malintent in order to burn down their business or something.
I agree with you on that last point. And actually, there was I don't know how deep you are into the knitting world on Instagram, Hunter, but
Not very
okay.
Oh, here
But
we go.
there's been a
Here
lot
we
of
go.
what I call the social justice wars happening in that community over the past few years. And recently, there's a guy named Neil James who I've talked to. He does a magazine called Blocked Magazine, and he's very anti-woke and kind of highlights some of the different social justice knitters and the things that they're saying. And he posted a video of this woman. She's very well known in the social justice knitting world, and she was saying on camera that white men
I know
need to stop
exactly what she's talking
rioting
about.
and looting when their favorite team doesn't win, and that if they don't know how to express themselves without violence and destroying property, that they need to take up a hobby. And then she had a caveat, and she said, but not Black people. When we do it, when Black and brown people riot and destroy property, it's sacred.
Yeah,
And
I know exactly who she's talking about. It's a shame. It's this woman who has a yarn company called Lola Bean Yarn. And I knitted this shawl from Lola Bean Yarn, and it's beautiful yarn. It is beautiful yarn.
Oh, wow.
It is so nice and silky, and like it has such a nice drape. And it's a shame that the woman who makes this yarn, which is really beautiful and really luxe, I would buy this every day of the week. I feel dirty purchasing her yarn because she's so fucking woke that it's annoying.
Yeah. Jeez.
But I got that as part of like a yarn along, so I didn't have any choice in it. But it is beautiful yarn. It really is. Her name is Adele.
Who said that?
I can't remember her
I
name,
think.
but it's on the United Kingdom
Adele.
Instagram. If anyone wants to find it, maybe somebody in chat. There's a bunch of knitters in chat. They can find
That
it. Tell
sounds
me
like
who
the
it is.
complete type of thing that I would make fun of here on this channel.
Okay. Okay, so we're in agreement that that's silly. I think, and for me, that's the epitome of, in my opinion, a lot of social justice, the old ideology I was in. I came to understand that they were telling me that the way to end racism and sexism was to start judging and treating people differently on the basis of race and sex, like to have different rules about behavior and different rules about the importance of what someone is saying based on what their race or sex was.
Right.
And so that became one of the things that, it took me 20 years to see that, that's what was happening, because in my case,
the identity politics sort of thing.
Right, but also that on a very fundamental level, they were getting me to start treating people differently on the basis of race. I remember in one of the social justice groups I was in, there which was a lot of white women. There was one white woman who was saying, she's like, "You guys, give me some advice. How do I make friends with Black women? This one Black woman moved to my town, and I want to ask her where she's from, but I know that's a microaggression."
15,000 times in the last 3 years.
Lady, just treat her like you would a white lady. What is wrong with you? But I came to understand that what is wrong with her is that social justice is telling her that she needs to treat this Black woman like a Black woman, which means treating her differently, like having different rules. Don't ask certain questions. Be really precious around it, and it's like,
that would
I know
be what we call over here the woke scolds.
The woke scolds?
The woke scolds. So that there is I'm more of a liberal, and then there's the far lefty types that are the communists.
You're not a liberal.
The neo-pronoun people.
You're not a
they would be
liberal.
No, you're not a liberal. You're a leftist.
They're scolding you for not being woke enough. So those types of people, I mock those people almost every single day.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're not woke.
I mean, the thing is,
no,
woke
he
is.
is.
He
at
is.
this point now, I've seen people say that certain
he just
forms of media are
deviates
woke
a little
like
bit.
3-second lesbian kiss.
Isn't it funny that we both hate Hunter like proportionally more than we hate Keri?
Really just depend on what is actually.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
Right. Well, like a lot of words, I think we're at a point
He's
where we
really
have to define what we
bad.
mean. Like when I ask you, what does validate mean, or what do you mean when you say social
I shouldn't
democracy?
say
I'm at that
hate. I
place
don't
where
hate him. I feel bad
Hunter,
for
I
him.
select
don't
myself
hate
as
him
liberal,
either,
and
but
I know that
it's not
many
that
people,
personal
including
to
yourself,
me,
probably
but
don't see me as a liberal, so I have to define what I mean by that. And
he's
and
bad.
I ask
That's
conservatives, like, what does it mean? What does conservative mean? We're in a place where words are losing all meaning, which I think is intentional. I think we're getting to a place where it's hard to have conversations or even have a conversation like this, because
Yeah,
we
but a
don't
lot of
have
the
any
words that are losing
common
meaning.
definitions anymore.
Yeah, but a lot of the words that are losing meaning. I know people are going to bring up the definition of a woman or something, but I mean, other than that, it seems to be way more common on the right wing side of things. I mean,
What do
now
you mean?
everybody's a
No.
groomer, everything is woke, everything is communism.
That's not
It
true
seems
at
to be
all.
way more common on the right wing actually
No,
than I've
that is
seen
wrong,
on the
Hunter.
left
That
wing.
is not
And
correct.
this is a bit of a caveat, but I just wanted to really quickly point out, because I'm in agreement with you that identity politics are really cringe. You know, this I have these politics, or you need to listen to me because of my
Hunter is
race,
woke,
or because of my
though.
identity in any way.
Yes.
But like even right now, there are people in your chat doing just that. They're saying, I'm black and I never experienced systemic racism. Like, I don't care, because whether or not you are black should not hold weight as to whether or not systemic racism is actually a
Well,
problem. So, like,
Keri's
a lot of
woke
the times I
too.
see
This is the
conservatives
problem.
sort of falling into the same
Hunter,
trap. Like,
Hunter, congratulations on identifying that Keri and her audience are woke. Congratulations.
But I think too, like he's gonna go on a low-key racist rant now about how he knows more about somebody else's black experience than they do. But this is what woke leftist SJWs do, which again, he is illustrating that he is one. Congratulations, Hunter.
Proving our point every time. Tom J, two people that still have 2-digit IQ combined, right? Meh. I think she lives close to me and I'd love to have a combo with her for fun. Tom J, you should go covert. Go undercover. Go meet Keri at a coffee shop. Go, like, for real. Go, like, please do that. Tom J, you will be a hero if you go and have an undercover conversation with Keri. I'm not even joking about this. We can organize something. We can crowdfund to get you like we'll get you like a little pin cam. I don't know what you need to talk about, but like, I will totally support this. We'll figure out a way to get you a hidden camera. It'll be great.
how many times have you heard Candace Owens say things like, you know, I can't be racist, I'm a black woman, or how could I be a neo-Nazi, I'm Jewish? Like, you hear these things a lot, and that is identity politics. That is suggesting that based on your identity, you must hold certain beliefs, or you must not hold certain beliefs.
I agree with you to a point. Here's where I disagree. And I had this thought. This was a year or two ago when somebody was saying to me, "Who would you trust more about a pregnancy, a male doctor or a female midwife?" And there was this whole idea of like, see, for me, I'm not saying that your identity or what social justice people call lived experience doesn't matter at all.
Right.
What they call lived, it does. And somebody's
That's
experience
not
with
what lived
something, their
experience
anecdotes, their
means.
stories, that does matter to me. And I weigh it with
It's
a bunch
not.
of other things. I
Right.
weigh it with what evidence they provide. Someone like you who has a lot of statistics that you provide. A person's identity for social justice people, that seems to be a lot of times the be all end all, where it's like, if I am black, then what I say is truth and my lived experience. Or if I am a woman, then what I say about sexism is true and it's my lived experience and you can't argue with it. And I reject that right out of the gate. It's like,
Right.
I'm willing to
It's
listen
like,
to,
sorry, go ahead.
right, but I'm willing to listen to what you call your experience, your anecdotes, your stories, right? Like you should, I hope you're willing to listen to mine and
Of course.
assume that I'm sincere until you have reason to believe I'm not.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to take into account like if your expertise, if you are a doctor, if you are, you know, and you're
Alex,
speaking on
this
something medical,
beer
like,
is
like the therapist identity,
marshmallow.
I'm going to take his opinions.
Wow.
I'm going to weigh them a little more
That'd
heavily
be
because of
good.
his background and his expertise.
Smells like a
And him being
marshmallow.
a man is not really going to come into play for me very much on what he's saying.
Right. The thing is like
so-
the lived experiences do play a role. I mean, we're talking about our own experiences right now.
Right.
So like if somebody is to say something like, hey, I'm black and I've never experienced systemic racism, that in and of itself, cool, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you haven't experienced that. The problem is when you say, I'm black, I've never experienced systemic racism, so systemic racism is bullshit. That's when you lose me, because the personal anecdote doesn't trump the actual data. But in a minute, we should actually talk about systemic racism because there's a lot of misunderstandings about that concept.
Okay, we can talk about it. We were going in that direction anyway. I did see one thing scroll by. Hold on. Oh wait, that's not the right one. Hold on. Somebody said, "Oh, don't white supremacists have to be white?"
Oh, that they asked me that question?
Yeah.
I mean, you would definitely expect that for sure. But I mean, this is why I bring up the fact that there were Jewish Nazis during World War II. Like, it doesn't make sense, sure, for somebody to be black and be part of like a white supremacist, but they exist. They absolutely do. If you've ever heard of Jesse Lee Peterson, you can listen to that guy talk. He's a black
Jesse
dude, and
Lee
he will tell you in a
Peterson
heartbeat
is
that
a
black people are,
jackass.
pretty gross, irresponsible. That white
He
people
is
are
a
definitely superior. That white people are
jackass.
genetically smarter than black people. I believe that. I don't know if he's gone that far or not, but usually he's heavily suggesting it. So I mean, that could definitely be a thing that exists, but generally speaking, like, no, you probably expect the white supremacist to be a white person as well. The thing is that like you can still hold certain white supremacist beliefs and not be a white person. But yeah, that's kind of a funny question. I feel like the person probably was asking that a little bit in bad faith, but still pretty funny.
I know. I think that's a genuine question people have.
Okay.
I like your answer. I think it's very rare.
It is
I do
definitely
think
very rare.
I think it's funny when the left will call people like what's his name? He was running, Larry Elder. They called him the face of white supremacy, which I just think is
That's so
absurd.
weird.
And
Yeah, there's, you know, it's funny you say that because I actually have been recently in a feud with the far more woke scold side of the lefties, and I'm getting called a Nazi. and a reactionary and a conservative. And people will say things like, it's funny because I'll have one side of the political side saying, Hunter's a grifter. He doesn't really believe anything he says. He's just changing his mind for money, which doesn't even make sense because I lost a ton of views and subscribers. So there was no potential to make more money by leaving the.
But
That's
there's
not
gotta
true,
be-
Hunter.
That just doesn't make sense.
Just because you
If
lost
my goal was to
subscribers
just
doesn't mean you
acquire
don't
more
make
money
more
or fame
money.
somehow. And then you have people on the complete other side
And
saying
there's also
Hunter never
shadow
changed. He's
money.
exactly the same as he used to be. He's still a conservative. People call me alt-right, white national. Actually, no, I haven't got white nationalist yet, but I've got alt-right, transphobia, Nazi, Hitler, Avallone. That was one of
I
them.
know, but they eat
like,
their own.
there's just
I get called transphobe, and as I said before, trans enabling Pharisee. So I understand what you're saying. There's going to be people, and people, I don't know, people will think what they want, and if they think the wrong thing about you, I think that's a death of the ego that you have to maybe experience many times before you get used to it. So every
Yeah,
time you think
Keri,
you've
you're
conquered
putting me
problem,
through a
it's
lot
like,
of that right now.
I've
Thank
come so
you.
far, look at me, I don't care if people think the wrong thing about me, and then you'll go through another experience like that where you're learning the same lesson.
She
again.
can't call that
It
out
doesn't
because
matter,
she's the
right?
very
A lot of it's
person
just-
that
There's more
does
to
that.
go. There's
Have
further for you to go
to.
and get stronger in whatever that
Well,
area
I'm
is,
saying
right?
like Keri can't.
Yeah,
Hang
I'm
on,
not just
hang
doing
on,
anything
hang on.
on the
Let me-
internet or
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. That's all right.
Keri can't call out his audience that's saying that because she's very much that person herself. So
I mean, this is amazing. This is like they're getting along great because this is two woke people having a conversation about like how they're not woke because neither of them really realize they're woke. They think the other person is woke.
they do.
It's
That's
crazy.
so weird. It's like a big woke psyop.
It is.
I think that, Hunter can be, he'll point out that you can be, white supremacist and not white, but he doesn't understand that he can be like racist without realizing he is. You know what I'm saying?
Or
Like,
homophobic without realizing he is.
well, that he has to realize because it's so obvious.
I
That's
don't
why
think he does. I think that he thinks he's a defender of gay rights.
No. The right to agree with him on everything ever. Well, that's not very free, is it? No.
Well, indeed.
or doing like podcasts or streams like I do and like you do, it's literally just comes along with the understanding that there are going to be people that no matter what you say or do, they will never be content. Like, I mean, I can,
Like you.
even right now, like I'm
Exactly,
I'm
Hunter.
by the definition of a woke grifter,
Exactly.
I cannot meet that
Yes.
definition. But that's not going to be good enough. I'm going to always be a grifter to some people. And similarly, I'm always going to be a white
Yes.
supremacist, neo-Nazi, Hitler sympathizer from people on the far left. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. It's unfortunate, but it definitely is
Maybe
how it goes.
both are true. Who knows?
Keri actually legitimately needs to learn this lesson because Kieran made a meme about Keri in June of last year, and she was talking about it for 6 straight fucking months. Like a single fucking meme set Keri off for months and months and months and months and months after this. So this is a lesson that Keri legitimately needs to learn. Like, people are going to make memes about you. It's just the way it is. People make memes about me every day. Keri, your horde makes most of the memes that exist about me these days. So she really does need to learn this lesson.
I like the witch ones. That's my fave.
Well, that wasn't made by a hater. The witch one was made the one where I'm the Wicked Witch of the West and there's a ball of yeah, so that was made by Danimal Crackers and he did a great job. That was a good fucking meme.
I love it.
That was the best meme. Yeah.
To systemic racism.
Yeah, and then
You
after
said
systemic racism, I'll probably be heading out from there.
Yeah, me too. I have about a 2-hour timeline on my bladder and we're hitting it.
Okay, so they're about to wrap
you
up
said
and then
to
we
me
get to
when you were
listen to
messaging me
Hunter
about the
shit
possibility of
talker
us
for a
talking
little
that you're
while.
Also, that it would be
Ooh.
interesting because we've had these sort of different
I want to
trajectories
hear what he says
when
when
it
they
comes to
sign
right-left,
off.
which I don't even really believe in right-left very much anymore, in my opinion. But you also mentioned you're atheist.
Yes.
And I'm a pretty new Christian. Have you always been
Oh
atheist?
no.
No,
Oh
so it's funny
no.
'cause I'm
No, Keri.
Keri, no.
But,
No. Back
no,
away,
I'm not
Keri.
an atheist. In fact, I was raised very heavily Christian. I mean,
Careful,
my best friend
Keri.
was at church.
Wait.
Even my wife, I actually
Hang on. This is a horrible idea.
It really
What
is.
the
But
fuck is Keri thinking bringing up Christianity to an atheist?
I give her credit, but as I've stated many times, there's a reason I'm not an evangelical, and I think it's because what you do, I'll say it again, you educate people, you express the beliefs, you express the value, you express yourself. You don't hide that you are a Christian, right? And then people that have questions, they will ask you later. And also people typically convert on their own, usually by themselves. That's usually when they do, but you can make things known. So you can express things, but debate me, bro. Christianity is not really the way. I don't
Especially
think
not with
so.
an atheist. Atheists are
I
so
know.
angry. Most of them, not all of them. Like there's some lovely atheists, but like a lot
Right.
of them are really angry.
Well, Hunter is definitely the atheist stereotype for sure. But
Oh God. I'm gonna do a cross.
here we go.
We met her at church when we were
Wow.
much younger. We met when we were younger, both Christians going to church, and then she
At
went
an
off
ice cream social.
not quite, but it was at Sunday service or whatever. And then she went off to college. I went off and did my thing, and then we later met up again. But
Oh,
a lot
Hunter's
of
wife
the
went to
friendships
college.
I
That
have
makes sense.
to this day came from church. So I mean,
Oh,
it was
so
really,
she was
really
brainwashed
heavily
there.
immersed in this sort of
Yep.
Christian environment.
What kind of denomination?
Usually I was just told that I was like non-denominational.
Oh yeah, that's what I think.
Evangelical.
I'm non-denominational. I think.
No, you're in
Yeah.
a cult, Carrie.
It was very much
You're in a
very
cult.
heavy
You
focus
might
on
be
God's grace, God's
legit.
forgiveness,
Yeah.
I'm not making that
Jesus
up. You're in
died
a
as the
cult.
ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
I guess those are pretty common standard aspects of Christianity in general.
And
But
where did you grow up? In the South or the North?
Non-denominational means
Maryland.
evangelical. That's
And so
what
when
it
did you
means.
start? When did you become an atheist? And what was that? What led you to the conclusion that there is no God?
well, that's the common confusion actually, and there are definitely people who would be considered, I think, like strong atheists who would say there is no God. For me, I don't make a positive claim. Like I would never claim that there is no God.
That means you're
because the
agnostic,
proposition
Hunter.
of God is by definition unfalsifiable. You cannot actually prove that there is no God. For me, I just don't see enough evidence to rationally or feel rationally justified in believing there is a God. So if something changes, then I will believe that there's a God. But as of right now, the evidence that is usually presented is not sufficient along the lines of, or as well
He
as
may
the
end
entire
up
philosophy of
converting 'cause
Christianity.
he's too
I
extra
find a
about
lot
it.
of
Hunter is one of these people that is going to get smacked in the forehead with God when he hits 30.
It's very possible. And I think usually people that are very extra about God, they usually end up believing. That's usually, and it may even be to Christianity. It depends on where he goes from there. But a lot of times, if you're very butthurt about it, you tend to believe later. The people that are not ever going to convert are people like Sydney Watson. Like she's very calm about being atheist. She's completely happy. You know what I mean? Like it's usually those people that they don't ever convert. But someone like Hunter, he probably will. He probably needs a religion. I'm gonna be honest.
I totally agree with you. I think like he's going to fill that God-shaped hole with something.
Yeah, and I think the way his mind is, he needs a structured religion. Like he needs a religion because he needs structure. And I think he's trying to fill that with woke. And it's a very piss poor religion. Yeah. Very
I agree.
poor.
Now, Bot, you're kind of worrying me. How are you finding Keri's wedding announcement? Like you're like, Bot, I want to say this, and I'm saying this seriously. I appreciate the research you're doing. It's very important that we are able to ascertain Keri's astrological chart, because that will maybe give us some hints about this insanity that I've been involved in for now almost 2 fucking years. But I just don't want you to cross the line into stalker, dude. I don't want you to cross the line. Just be judicious. You know what you're doing. I don't. I just don't want anyone stalking anyone else on my behalf. That's all I'm asking. I'm trying. Alex, I'm trying so hard to be the adult in this situation. It's not my natural inclination to want to be the adult.
Oh my God.
issues with it now that I'm kind of out of that and I look back at it. I see a lot of inconsistencies.
Like what?
A great question is, why does God not reveal himself? Because if, according to Christianity, God wants us to have a
God
personal
does
relationship
reveal
with him,
himself.
and yet if we don't believe in him,
You
then
have
we will
to be
condemned
listening.
to eternity in hell, which that also is unjust.
God does reveal himself. You have to be listening, Hunter.
Or you have to be willing to deal with it. It's very easy. You can ignore anything. You can ignore the fact that they're teaching critical race theory in schools. You know, there's tons of evidence. It shows itself every damn day, but he won't see it.
He doesn't want to see it. In the same way that
Right.
you can easily ignore God, you can also see God in everything. You can see God in a sunrise. You can see God in a flower. You can see God in everything if you want to see God.
I agree.
Tom J says, are they going to bang or not? I'm guessing not.
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not. Keri only fucks Christians, of course.
That's true. She'd be excommunicated from her church.
She would be. She would be. Only Christian dick. That's it.
Then why would he not make himself known, or at least give some kind of a form of evidence to rationally believe that a God exists?
I love this kind of conversation. So bear with me. Here's
Oh
what I
my
think.
God.
I'll
Keri
kind
just
of
went into straight
explain it well.
conversion.
I may stumble. Anyway, I think God does give its evidence, and that's why sometimes if I'm praying for someone,
This is gonna go
especially
really
if I know they're
bad.
going through a
It's
hard
going to
time
go
and they
so
don't believe
wrong.
in
Look at
God,
Hunter's face.
um,
Hunter does
I
not
will
want to
pray
hear
for them that
this.
God speaks to them in the language that they can hear, and it's not always the same. Like I know some people who I know one person who says their experience of God was that they heard an audible voice. That's amazing. I can't even imagine that didn't happen to me. I've never heard an audible voice. Maybe that's what it took for that person. For other people, it might be music, or it might be the way in which I think God speaks to me is sort of with a sense of humor, with coincidences, things that happen, and it's hard for me to put it in words. But that's why I'm sort of like I think that God is capable of reaching people in different ways, depending on what's going to be likely for them to open their eyes or open their ears and 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 see Him, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
but this
I
is sort of
can't
my
prove
problem,
this.
actually. This kind of falls right back into my problem with
Right,
this.
but you're asking why not come out like down from the heavens and be like, I am real, believe, because
Not even
oh,
necessarily. I mean, it
okay.
just seems like
Hunter is
the
not
examples you gave
liking
me,
this.
like there's no way of actually demonstrating or proving in any way that that was actually from God. Why
I
could
know.
it not be that if you have a conversation with a friend who says, I'm really nervous about my job interview, and then you go home and you pray for that person, and then they get the job, which is like a 50-50 chance anyway, we don't know that that's God. That could very easily have just been a coincidence. And
Well, and also I think that that's kind of dangerous if you to pray for things that you want in a sort of like Santa Claus in a way, like because you're not
That's not
probably I'm the
dangerous,
best judge of
Keri.
what's
No,
going to
it's
be
not
good for me.
dangerous at all.
I learned this the hard way, and
Going
so
off
my
into
prayers
her
are more.
cult world.
I ask angels for airline upgrades anytime I travel.
You can ask God for whatever you want. God may not give it to you, but you can ask.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible says, like, if he can't, like, what is it? There's that one verse that says, you know, would you give your child, like, if your child asks for bread, would you give him a stone? It's like God's the same way. He's not going to do that to you. But I mean, again, maybe there's a lesson to be learned by a flying coach,
Well, yeah, or by having to spend $2,000 on an airline ticket to get to where you need to go, which I will still be litigating in small claims court, American. I haven't fucking forgotten about this. But no, I mean, like, you can ask, why does this keep doing this? No offense, Tom J. I'm not pushing any buttons though. No, but like, you can ask God for whatever you want. And if you're asking God to help you get this job, you're not really asking for the job. You're asking for security. You're asking for
Yeah,
fulfillment. You're asking for like a new adventure in your
great
life, whatever.
point.
Like it's not actually about the job. It's about what the job is going to provide you. And that might be an experience that you need that God can help you facilitate.
Right. It's a really good point.
Nothing wrong with that.
Or kind of open-ended, like God, I would like to have a child if it's within your will, and if it's not within your will, just be patient with me and help me understand why it's not. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely.
So I think a lot of times people, when I was younger,
Ooh.
I was raised in the church. When I was young, and I kind of walked away from God.
Hunter does not want to talk about this, and Keri has not gotten the memo yet.
I know even adults who would tell me, oh, I pray, and I pray for things for myself, right? And it's like, that's kind of dangerous because you
No,
might get a bunch of no's. Maybe you don't get that job.
It's
right?
not
And you're like,
dangerous.
"I'm
that's
even
not what it
prepared
is,
for the job."
Keri.
And I kind of view God as being like, don't just look on the other side of that no. There's some beautiful yes that you have no idea. You can't even imagine. Do you know how many times I've had a no in my life from God where it's like there was this one guy I was dating briefly before I met my husband, and I thought, this is it. How rare that I met a Christian man who agrees with me on so many things, and I just become a Christian. I was like, oh, it's going to be hard to date as a Christian now. You go into a date being like, hey, I don't want to have sex, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so anyway, I met this guy. I'm like, oh, it's meant to be. And then he moved away after like 2 dates, and we were still talking. But I was like, oh man, God, I was so upset. God, why'd you give me a no? I couldn't even fathom why you gave me a no. Now I understand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I
but
met
that's
my
the
husband.
problem though, is like
Yeah.
people meet people who they really like and who are very similar to them, and then that doesn't work out, and then they eventually meet somebody else that it does work out. Like,
No, Tom J,
that's
you're
the problem.
fine.
Is it
That was
seems as though
fine.
everything that is attributed to God could also be attributed to some kind of a natural explanation or a coincidence, or just the way things are in life. Like, we know in life that people start relationships. We know that relationships have ended, and we also know that even after painful relationships end, or after painful
Can you
endings of
pause it?
relationships,
Hang
you
on.
can
Yeah,
meet somebody
yeah.
else who might actually
Go ahead.
This kind of thing, it shows how little Hunter has been through. Because, for example, I've talked about it plenty of times, but the entire panorama was extremely traumatic for me. And I was very bitter about it for almost 2 years. And I just now am realizing why it had to happen for me. Obviously, it happened for everybody for different reasons, but why it happened to me in the way that it did. And I finally have peace. But there were moments where, well, I don't know if I doubted God during that time, but just definitely questioned, definitely did not understand. Why would this happen to me? Right? Like horrible, horrible. And that's a very long-standing, horrific, really bad experience. It lasted 11 months for me. And the pandemic met a step. And even in the second year, it was still really horrible, but it wasn't as bad as the first year. And now in 2022, I'm like, I understand exactly why it had to happen. It has led me to this point, and I completely understand. And I'm not at the point where I'm grateful for it, that I may get there, but I'm at least at the point where I'm not angry about it. And that's huge. And that's the work of God.
Yes.
So, definitely. But he hasn't had, it doesn't sound like he's had anything to that extent. Nothing's hit him that hard yet. Maybe something has, but maybe he just deflects it, or, a lot of people will dissociate, right? They don't want to process it emotionally. Maybe that's what's happened with him.
I agree.
Actually end up being even better. Now you've even technically refined what you're looking for in somebody because you have that experience, and now you have an even better understanding. So like that's the thing, though, is there is a natural explanation. And I really quick want to address something in your chat, because two things is, one, somebody said that God, why haven't you just done this thing for me? That was not the point that I was trying to make.
No, that was the point I was making with people who pray that. I don't think that person was talking about you.
Right.
Like I was saying, a lot of people treat prayer like that. Like, I want this job, and then like, why didn't you give me that job? Right? Like, that's not. I was saying, I don't think that's a. I think there's issues with praying that way, rather than
there are religious. It's different for a religious person.
I mean, I'm seeing people. The last thing. I'm not going to be over here just responding to your chat. I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it.
No, it's okay. Somebody also said, like, yeah, this is why we have faith. There is not a single position that you cannot take on faith. So if we sat down here and started having a trans talk, and I just said, well, I have faith that the medical professionals are going to do their job, or I have faith that person really is trans. I mean,
you're literally doing that, Hunter.
Superior to black people.
You're literally doing that.
Cannot be justified by faith, which is why I find this notion of faith is almost worthless in regards to actually coming to truth, because you can have faith in anything.
I agree.
I'm not sure what her middle name is, but sorry.
I believe that we were, well, I've come to believe recently that we were probably designed to worship and to have faith. And that's why you see us humans creating so many different faith systems and putting faith in things like the government or the medical establishment or other people, or
but some of that isn't actually faith. Like, so for example, like people will say that to me, they'll be like, oh yeah, but you have faith in the medical institution. No, I don't have faith. I have evidence that the medical institutions have consistently delivered the best possible results based on the best possible research.
But you ignore the evidence that doesn't align with what you think.
This is why people will say, I guess even broader, I should broaden this to just science. People say, like, you have faith in science. No, I trust that science is going to deliver an adequate answer because it has done so thus far. And the only thing that corrects science is more science. There's never been a scientific claim that was suddenly refuted by a claim of God or the supernatural. And then so that's kind of my problem, is like there are a lot of experiences that I have. My parents are still like extremely strong Christians.
He's 25 right now,
God, but there's no actual evidence that is actually God. And then lastly, somebody in chat said if God revealed himself, that would affect free will. Not even close, considering the fact that Satan saw God and then became Satan and was able to rebel. So this notion that if God even revealed himself, we would all be like compelled to follow him. I can tell you, growing up in the church, there are plenty of people that are already compelled to follow God. So just to answer that person in chat. Sorry, that's the end of it.
No, wait. I'm trying to jump back a couple of sentences. So because there was something I wanted to say to you about about faith. I kind of agree with the person that said if God were to reveal himself completely, it's like then you're not learning what that exercise of faith and trust in God is about. I sort of think that
it's just people wouldn't believe it anyways. That's all.
It might sound cliche, but it is a journey for me. It's like a practice or an exercise, learning to grow faith and trust. And I know to any, and I have plenty of atheists who watch my show, and
again,
they're very tolerant.
God reveals themselves all the time. God reveals himself all the time in everything. If you look around at any given moment, you can see God at any point. The fact that we are streaming to people all over the internet right now. I mean, come on. That's incredible. That is a miracle. That is a fucking miracle. Like, I've got beautiful art on my walls, or like shawls. You're knitting something great. Like, that is an act of creation. That is literally an act of God. Like, you can always like, I don't like this argument that like God is just like a thing that we never see and never experience, and we just have to take it on pure faith. Like, God reveals himself all the time, and if you're open to seeing what God is doing, then you will see it. If you're not open to seeing it, you won't see it, because we have free will, and we have the free will to deny that God exists.
Yes. It's true. And it's interesting too, like you said, because when I think about us streaming now, it's like I can see all of the gears that had to turn and everything that led to this moment. And it was a long time. It was a lot of different processes, even in my, especially in my own life, like to where I would even be at the point where I could do this. That's God, like it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. But you have to look. Bible says, if you seek, you shall find. So I would say that to Hunter. If you seek, you shall find, Hunter. You have to search for it. If you don't, or if you don't want to see it, then you won't. And that's the same with anything. Even it could be, it could be anything. But the most obvious example is if you're in a relationship that's toxic and you don't want to see it. A lot of people have been through that. You know what I'm saying? Or you've seen somebody else go through that. Even if the evidence is right in your face and it hits you every single day, you can still deny it. You can always, that's one of the greatest flaws of humanity. We have the incredible ability to deny all evidence and facts if we don't want to see it.
I have a story. I haven't talked about this publicly yet. I talked to a medium last night. And
Really?
and I had some questions about some of this nonsense and why it's happening and what lessons I'm supposed to learn from it. So I consulted a medium, and in the middle of our chat, and when we very first started talking, it was the weirdest thing. I started feeling a tingling all across my back.
Oh,
And I didn't know what it was, but I was just like, okay, there's a tingling across my back. And we're just talking on phone. She can't even see me on video or anything. And in the middle of our conversation, she interrupts and she's like, your father's still alive, but your grandmother on that side, she's passed, right? And I said, yes. And she said, she's standing behind you right now, putting her hands on your shoulder to push energy into you, to let you know to be strong.
Oh, wow.
And this is the grandmother that I'm named after. My middle name is her first name. This is a grandmother, and and the medium described to me. I didn't even say anything to her. The medium described to me how my grandmother had always looked after all of us, like the grandkids, when we were like after school and stuff like that, and like really raised us. She described my grandparents taking me to like the fair when I was a little kid. She described my cousin who was also like babysat with me and my family and me and my brother with the grandparents. She said, oh, there's an A name. There's an A name. That's Armand. That's my grandfather. And it was like she described everything perfectly. And I'm like, it's like I don't talk about this stuff publicly at all. Like you can't find, like, even if you're like personal friends with me, like on Facebook or something, you're not going to find information about my grandparents at all because I don't talk about it. And she described everything to a T. I was like in tears. I was like, holy shit. And like, you can't tell me that's not real. I literally felt like someone was putting their hands on my shoulders. You can't tell me that's not real.
I have certain limits, being a Christian. Like I don't believe in communicating with the dead, for example. That's pretty obvious. But I have talked to a medium before as well, and they knew how someone looked that they had never seen a picture of the person, and I was amazed. That stuff it's pretty crazy. But I will say that like I said, as a Christian, I do have limits, and I didn't go to certain areas. Like I don't believe in talking to the dead, so that didn't happen for me, but I do think it's fascinating, and it is crazy, how accurate that stuff is. There is definitely more than, what the CDC says is out there.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And I think that's going to show up for different ways. Like for you as a Christian, that experience wouldn't happen. But for me, that's how I understand God. So that's how it showed up to me.
Well, I think it could have happened, but I closed it off, because I don't believe in that.
Oh, because you didn't want that.
And I told the person specifically, I don't want to do that because it's a line. Again, we love being, in a religion, but there are limits, right, to certain things. So same thing with, I think a lot of people get triggered when I look into astrology or tarot or whatever. I don't believe in divination as a Christian. That you're not allowed to do that. I am not allowed to speak to any spirits or anything like that. But when I've ever used tarot, I've only used it as a way to focus my own intuition. So it's never a conversation with anything else. I would never do Ouija or whatever.
Oh no, never use a Ouija board.
No.
Ouija boards are asking for trouble. No, 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 no,
I would
no,
never
no.
do that.
No, no, no,
And
no,
I
no.
don't, as far as astrology to me is not divination.
It's not.
It isn't anyways. People that think it is, they're not educated about it. It's
Jack
a tool.
Posobiec does not know what he's talking about.
No, he doesn't.
No, not at all.
No, that's not divination. Divination is speaking to a spirit. That's very different, which, you know, other people will do that, but I don't do that. So, and I would never make astrology my religion. I would never put astrology above God. I know that no matter what the stars, you know, are pointing to, or no matter where they are in the sky, God could say, I'm going to do the exact opposite tomorrow. I'm very aware of that.
It's true.
And my ability to read into it came from God. So it's like, I'm aware of that, but I also know God has the planets where they are right now for a reason. And it is a way of communicating to a certain extent with God, or, you know, interpreting signs that he's given. That's how I see it. But, you know, other types of Christians like evangelical and etc., they don't agree with that. And that's fine. Some people, it probably gives them huge anxiety. You know, it probably freaks them the fuck out. And the same thing with me. I do not want to communicate with the dead anyways. But I just, it's against my belief. I just feel that whatever they were meant to say, they would have said when they were alive, you know. And that is something I do follow in the faith. And, you know, the Bible does forbid that. But, you know, Carlin is not Christian and I don't judge you for it, right? Like, I think it's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
I should not be held to Christian standards. No, I had a great experience. It was very uplifting, and it put a lot of perspective on things. Maybe I'll have another appointment with this medium and ask her why Keri is psychotic about me. I'm gonna be like, can we talk to Keri's higher self, please, and find out what the fuck is going on? Well, it's actually funny. The medium told me this story about how, like, this person that, like, has made her life an absolute nightmare in this lifetime, like, it's a soul contract with them. They're like best of friends in the spirit realm, and they've been best friends in real life before, and they've been, you know, sisters before. And in this lifetime, they made a soul contract where they're gonna be worst enemies, and they're going to experience that. It's like, you know, I mean, maybe Keri and I have lived past lives together. Fuck, I'm gonna have another appointment, aren't I?
I think you should ask, because I mean, like I said, it was like I said when I was talking to the medium, like I said, like, you know, I believe in it. It's not that I don't, it's that I do. And so I think I need to be careful, you know.
I understand.
But that's, but I, you know, you have to look at it with a certain, if you can't find the line and it just freaks you the hell out, you do not have to be involved with it at all. And I would say you shouldn't. You know what I mean?
We all have free will. Yeah. You don't have to do it. You don't have to.
Right.
Multi-Drider says, with talk of religion and tarot and Hitler going to heaven, I believe as a Christian that Bible is not literal, but rather just a loose interpretation. I think the Bible has many life lessons, many great life lessons. I don't think, and I think that there's probably like nuggets of truth in there, particularly about like Jesus and his teachings. But it's also like, it was written a long time ago. It's been through several iterations. There isn't even agreement on which Bible is the correct Bible. It's like man has had a hand in this. And so you have to take the good, keep the good, and then discard the rest.
Well, I think too, the Bible is not a scientific text or a history book. It's a religious text. So you have to look at it differently. Religious texts are very much about interpretation, and you have to interpret things, and people experience it differently. And it's even known in Christian circles, you know, within Christianity, that at some point in your journey, you can read the Bible and you don't see something that you later do see if you read it again 10 years later, right? So there is kind of a mystical quality to the Bible, and likely other religious texts as well, you know, so where you can, it's just a different thing. It's not a scientific study, you know, the Bible is not like that. So I think Hunter is upset with it because he wants to read the Bible like a scientific text, and it's not. It isn't like that. And it's not meant to be like that.
Nope.
Science and religion are not the same. And they're also not mutually exclusive, but science is wrong all the time. And there is bad interpretations of scripture too. Like Keri's pastor, he doesn't interpret things very well, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I threatened her pastor. Did I tell you this? I emailed her pastor threatening him.
Yeah.
I may have said it last time. Well, let me say it this time just because I fucking emailed Keri's pastor when Keri was like going off the handle and I was like making police reports last week where I said to him, I was like, if you don't fucking stage an intervention, I'm gonna start collecting all the content you're putting online and I'm gonna juxtapose your teachings that you're preaching on the fucking internet with how Keri is actually behaving as a representative of your congregation. Right. And I will do it, Bradley. I'm not fucking around.
Right. And the thing too is like, I just know that it's not that great by the way Keri's talking about prayer. She's like, you got it. It's dangerous. There's no dangerous prayer, Keri.
There's no dangerous prayer. God doesn't want to like give you what you want. You're just not going to get it.
Right. If it's not good for you, it won't happen. And you just have to deal. I mean, that's what it is. But it's like, it's not dangerous for you to ask that.
God is not judging you and being like, that is a horrible prayer. No. Bad. I will smite thee for that awful prayer.
You're supposed to pray about stuff. You're supposed to.
Just talk with God. You can even have just a conversation. It doesn't need to be, can I have X, Y, B, and Z? Just talk.
Right. But sometimes God will, if you never talk to God, unless if you need something, then he'll make sure you need something. So you talk to him.
That's very, 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 very true. Very true. Angels want to be wanted. Angels want to help us. They're always here. They're ready to go. They can help you find your car keys. They can help you fix your computer. They can help heal you. They can give you sage life advice. They're always here.
Right. I agree. I agree with that.
They may be losing their patience.
This is good, Alex. We're ending on a high note. We're ending on like the big questions of life. Oh, go.
But the way that I view it is it's sort of I'm having to learn to grow to trust God more every day, even when I think all of my human perception is saying this is awful. This thing that just happened.
You know, the sad thing is that I think that Keri and I could actually have a good talk about belief and spirituality if she got over her bullshit.
I think, again, I've told you, I do think that she is legit Christian. She's just so early and it will take, she has to go through a lot of changes and God will, not to be any shade towards Keri, but he is going to slap her in the face with so many things until she learns. And it's just a thing. And for some people, who knows what it will be for her, but one of the biggest slaps I've ever had was the pandemic for me. And it was, ooh, man. That's all I can say. It was illuminating though by the end of it. But, that's what I get for being a huge bitch, I guess. So
everyone gets slapped in the face with something. We are here to learn.
Yes, we all have our
life.
moment. Right. We have our times where we're slapped. So she's going to be slapped until she learns, because what she's doing in regards to you, Carlin, is not Christian. It's not good. It is.
I know.
It's sinful. It's not even just, it's a sin. She's holding on. She's not forgiving, or she's being bitter all the time. That's very anti-biblical. You're not supposed to be like that. So she'll be slapped.
I know. I keep telling myself it's all what goes around comes around, man.
Could possibly come from this, but I have to trust that there's on the other side of it. And I would say, like with science, God has given me that evidence when I need it. Those times I've asked for it and shown me, here's the yes that came on the other side of that no. But the
she's learning.
That bad thing, right? And as long as you're growing in God and you're trying to walk the way in which Jesus walked, you're trying to and you're failing, and then you're picking yourself back up and trying
Hunter
again.
is so not having this. He's so bored right now. He's like, fuck you. Look at him.
Continue to walk that path.
Purse lips.
And I can point to people who don't walk that path. Here's a great example. I watch a lot of my spare time. I like to watch true crime. I was watching a video the other day about Josh Duggar. He's the guy in the Duggar family, the 19 kids.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that whole issue.
Okay, so he just got convicted of child pornography, all this stuff. This is after, if you watch what happened with him, he had molested several of his sisters, and he comes from a Christian family, and they built their whole show around being Christian and what it was they believed, right? So he molested a bunch of sisters and another girl,
Yeah.
in the early 2000s. The family kind of hid that from the TV show producers. They got this show. It became very popular. Then the news came out much later that he had done this, that he had molested his sisters. And he issued an apology where he was sort of like, I'm sorry I did this, but it was so long ago. It was sort of this like, it's in my past and I'm a different person now. And I'm thankful for God's grace and that, forgiveness. And I'm the man I am today because of God. And he was sort of, that's in the past. I'm living the right way now. Then come to find out just a few short months later or something, dude was lying even when he said that. He was hiding the fact that he was on websites trying to have affairs on his wife and cheating on his wife. And so then he had to issue another apology where he's like, oh, I'm so sorry I hurt my wife. And I'm so grateful she's standing beside me. I'm grateful for God for forgiving me. Da, 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 da. Same apology. And it's like, dude, but you just did that while you were still living in duplicity and lies.
Right.
And so, and then it comes out later. He's like, even after the second apology, child porn, disgusting, like the worst child porn on the internet, convicted of it. My point bringing that guy up is that's not the path. And you know what? That guy is probably sitting every time something's revealed about him being a liar. He's probably like, God, why are you letting this happen to me? Why are you letting me be publicly humiliated like this? And it's like, dude, because you're not on the right path. And any one of these public humiliations,
it's gonna happen to
you.
you.
Keri, you need to get some serious fucking self-awareness, Keri.
Yeah, it's gonna slap you really hard, Keri, because you will not stop. And I think God is allowing you to do this for a more effective slap at a later time. And I'm just telling you, girl. I'm trying to tell you. It's like seeing somebody run towards a cliff,
It is so sad because it's so unnecessary. Like none of this
is
is
unnecessary.
You know what the medium told me, because of course we were talking about the queen, and basically like the medium said that he's like Jekyll and Hyde. He's done what he's doing to me to at least 5 other women. I knew about 2. She says it's 5. She correctly pinpointed that one of his ex-girlfriends is a witch and he'd done it to her, which I already knew about. And so it's like and basically she said like he's doing this. He knows it's wrong, but he's doing it anyway, and he is going to get slapped so hard for it.
He's got a Saturn return right around the corner, and it's going to be ugly.
It's going to be so fucking ugly. He is going to get it in spades. Spades. Not even close. And the same thing's going to happen to Keri, man. Karma is a real thing. Scott, if you want to know what Keri's done to me, there are like 87 streams on this channel where I talk about it. You can particularly go back to the one in February where I laid out for 3.5 hours the insanity that Keri has been heaping on me on Twitter for months.
It's basically, Scott, it's a lot of gossip and it's a lot of character assassination. She talks to people to try to get people to hate Carlin. Like she'll DM people. It's a lot of, sowing derision, sowing hate, sowing strife, and it's very targeted towards Carlin. So
yeah, and just know that stream that I did in February, it has gotten it stopped for a while. She reined it in for a while, and now we've reached peak insanity again. So it's actually gotten worse since then. But
yeah, she's gonna get slapped.
It's gonna get her bad. It really is.
And get on the right path, and you're not taking it.
But I don't know how. Like, of course, it's not the right path. That can be fully determined via secular means. So it's not a good path to have child porn or to cheat on your wife or molest people. Like you're going to end up going to jail doing those things. We have even laws in place at that point that pretty much established that like, hey, you're on the wrong path, buddy. And that's kind of the same problem that I have is like, I understand why there are a lot of people that attribute certain things to God, but at the same time, it can also be attributed to something else. So how do I know that it's actually from God? Because if I'm supposed to believe in God, or else he's going to send me to hell for all of eternity, then
hell
why
isn't
is it
real,
that when I try to take
Hunter.
the approach that I do, which is more of a sort of scientific approach, or how can I rationally be
we may disagree on that, Carlin.
I'm not able to come
That's
to that
all right.
conclusion.
We
There
don't
are a
have
lot
to
of people that are
agree.
not able to come to that
I
conclusion.
won't ban you from the
I
stream.
won't cancel you. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
what do
that.
you think of? What do you think hell is? I mean, I know it sounds like you don't believe it even exists, but when you say God will send us to hell, like.
I mean, it would depend fully on I guess your individual perception at this point because
I don't know what it is, but I think it might just be that you're permanently, eternally separated from God. Like I found God.
Are you
I didn't actually
fucking shitting me?
But I don't know how it was that you.
Keri doesn't believe hell fucking exists.
I mean, the way that they talk about it with like all that stuff, like fire and damnation, like let's get real. If we want to talk about this, then fine, I'll share my views on it. So I'll put it to you this way. I don't think the flames burn forever, but when you think of like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Sodom and Gomorrah is not literally on fire right now, but it is gone. those places are gone. So it's kind of like when it talks about it being forever, it's like the impact of whatever it is forever. And that's what I would say. But I don't believe in people burning forever. I don't believe in that either. I don't believe in that. But I think, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things. Like some people think it's like annihilation, like you're gone, basically. I would think that might be more likely than burning forever, right? Or like Dante's Inferno, which Dante's Inferno is an interesting piece of literature, but I don't believe in it. So.
I actually have. I have a Salvador Dali. You can't see it on the frame right now. Hang on. I have a Salvador Dali right there, that white one, and you can't see it well, but that's actually Dante walking in from purgatory into hell. And I was like, this is a perfect fucking allegory for what I do every day of my life. So I hung a Salvador Dali in my office to illustrate that point.
That's so funny. Yeah, I just, like I said, I do think it's a place, but it's like, I'm never going to be like, I don't know. I do believe it exists. And I do think it's a place, but I don't think it's the burning forever. Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. And I think that that's like a respectable position. I think that hell is a human created thing, but what Keri said is hell is separation from God. And I think, again, that actually leads into like the human created thing, because we can always be connected to God. And so it might turn out that Keri and I actually have very similar conceptions of hell, which is interesting, Keri, because Keri was one of the people who came after me for that fucking Hitler tweet. And if Keri really believes that hell is only separation from God, then that stands to reason that the person being separated from God, if free will is really a thing, if Keri believes in free will and doesn't believe in predestination, then that only stands to reason then the person can make the choice to be reconnected with God if they wanted to be, or if they felt worthy of it.
Yeah, I guess for me, I wonder, like, I hopefully will never know, but because I have heard of it as, like you said, like, and I do think it is plausible that it could be just separation from God. And I've heard of it described as like a thirst, right? Or like an everlasting thirst, or like, the gnashing of the teeth, like this kind of stuff. But it's not like you're literally burning in torture forever. It's like you more so have a regret over something. And maybe you're right. Maybe they are, maybe it's very Eight of Swords energy, right? Maybe they just feel trapped in it, but they're not actually trapped. But I could see that as a possibility, but I do wonder if it's sort of locked in post-death, But these are things we're never going to know, So,
well, we're going to know them at some point.
Yeah,
when we
I guess when we die, we will die. So I guess that's when I'll know. But until then, it's like, I'm certainly not going to cancel you on a tweet. But because I don't know, that was so weird to me.
Yes, nuclear. This is correct. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Correct, nuclear. I'm very proud of you. Well done.
Possible, like I said. I mean, I want to go to heaven, so that's what I'm working towards.
Came to like lose your belief. I gained my belief because I became obsessed with figuring out whether or not we have a soul, like something that's eternal. Like, and I think I ultimately realized I don't think that we're just a physical body and a computer brain. I think there's something more eternal.
Hunter's soul is dying.
Opened my mind to go
to
Hunter
is not
which was
having
the only place I would have gone at the time. I wouldn't have gone to a Christian church, and so I was sort of trying to figure out what I thought about all of this stuff. And I kind of think now that what if hell is just that eternal part of us? Because I do believe in that. I recognize you may not. What if it's just eternal separation from God?
Yeah, I've heard that argument too. I think that C.S. Lewis posited the idea that maybe hell will just be separation from God, and where we're basically just given over to whatever desire we might have. It's like I've heard it described sort of as a similar to on Earth, but even worse, because everybody's just out for themselves kind of thing. So I definitely think there are a lot of different perceptions and understandings.
I think it's a separate place. That's what I believe.
Regardless of whether it's like...
You believe it's a separate place?
Yeah, I think it's a separate place. I can even envision it as if there's heaven and then like a sort of chasm and then hell on the other side, right? That's kind of how I intuitively view it as. but I do think it's a choice. I do think people choose to go. That's how I feel. But
I think they might choose to go if they feel unworthy of being in God's presence. But I
maybe.
also think, like, in the spirit realm, I don't think we have to necessarily go and chat with God every day. I think we can if we want to or need to, but I don't think we have to.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting. The Bible does say, too, that for the Christians out there, that you'll be surprised by who's in heaven and you'll be surprised by who isn't. So that's an interesting one, too.
Does it really say that? Where does it say that?
I think it does, yeah. I
That's
can't think of it off
fascinating.
the top of my head, but I'll try to look it up.
Yeah, fascinating.
The fire and brimstone, or just a really bad place where everybody's out for themselves. The problem that I have with that is the complete unjust way in which God seems to go about doing this. And according to Christian theology, like, God is just, and he must be just, and logically he cannot be not just. Like, he has to be just. Justice is like an intrinsic quality of the Christian God. But there are two different things with this. Is one, I don't like the idea of sending somebody to eternal punishment for finite sins or crimes. And second of all, God is not even, like, what's the definition of justice, right? It's usually giving a punishment that fits the crime. That's not what hell and heaven is. It only hinges on belief. So you can have the rapist murderer sitting in prison cell, and before he's executed, he prays to God and genuinely becomes a Christian. He would go to heaven. Yet the firefighter who saves lives every single day and donates all of his money to charity simply doesn't believe in God. He would be doomed to hell. Like, that is intrinsically unjust.
I agree. My question would be, being a true crime junkie, I would want to look into the firefighter's life beyond just saving people's lives. Like, what else does that guy have going on? Because I'm starting to suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm starting to suspect that without God, without something bigger than ourselves, like a standard that's set from outside of ourselves that we're trying to hold, that without it, we wouldn't try to reach that, and we would just give into what we justify.
Keri just described wanting to be in a cult.
Make a lot of.
She just said that we need something outside of ourselves that sets a standard that we try to hold. And it's like, that's not how I view God. God is setting like a rigid standard, and it's my job to like meet that standard or I go to hell. Like, I don't agree with that.
No, that's not Christian. That's more old school religion. That'd be more like Judaism or Islam. But Christian, it's you're saved by grace. So I don't know. That's why I said I don't think that her church interprets the scripture that great.
I would tend to agree with you. It's like it's like a whole bunch of baby Christians.
Maybe it's the blind leading the blind. That's not good.
That's a very judicious way to put it.
Yeah, but it can turn. You can make a Christian cult. Trust. There are plenty of them.
Oh, we're gonna have Jennifer on the channel this week talking about a Christian cult. Yeah.
I mean, you can make a cult out of almost anything.
You know what's funny is I'm pretty sure that Carter was raised in a Christian cult, and that's why he doesn't buy into any of this bullshit at all.
And it's sad, but I think God is aware that he went through that, so he would probably judge it a little differently. There's some nuance. I don't know. It's not my job. I'm focused on my salvation. So that's how it should be.
That is how it should be.
Bad decisions in our lives and end up hurting a lot of people.
Mind your own beeswax.
But we already do that now. The thing is, we already do that now. Like,
right, but
are you talking about God providing this sort of like objective morality?
Yes. Here, I'll give you a quick anecdote. I work a lot of different gig jobs. I won't say what this gig job is, but I was driving my boss's van, and I drove it through a car wash, and it was way too big for the car wash. It was one of those gas station car washes, and it totally destroyed the top of the van. And I had to get like Scooby-Doo to get out of there, and then the top of the car wash fell off. And I parked the van, and I called my boss, told him what I did. I knew I was going to pay for it, but then I was like, there's no cameras here. And I really was like, oh, this car wash probably has insurance. I don't need to tell them what I did. I was thinking this. I was justifying it. My little brain was working overtime about why it would be okay to drive away. I actually got in the van and started to drive away. And then I thought, but God knows. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, and I know that I'm not living up to what I believe. And I can't live with that, with him knowing that I did that. And I went inside and told him, I broke your car wash. Here's my info. And my point is, that's just a little silly anecdote, but I think that happens with people with much more serious things all the time. I've seen friends who say that they worship reason, that's at the top of their hierarchy. But I think at the end of the day, what you're doing there is you just worship your own ability to reason. And if you can reason it out and
she doesn't meet the standard, but God still loves her. At least she knows she's not meeting it, because she's not, but nobody really does.
No.
So, I mean, she really isn't, and obviously isn't. I mean, she puts it all on blast, but that's okay, I guess. God still loves you. And I do think she'll learn, but she will be slapped.
We are not infallible human beings.
No. But that's why you're not supposed to judge so harshly. That's why she shouldn't be judging you so harshly, because she's not perfect either. And she doesn't see that part of it. It's not good.
I know this is not proper, but I cannot fucking wait to watch this woman get what's coming to her, because you know it's going to be public. You know it is.
It probably will be. Yeah, it may not be, but it's whatever will probably hurt the most. And that's what she doesn't get. You know, the punishment of God is way worse than anything that somebody else can think of. And, you know, that's partially why the Bible says to not take revenge out on others, because he has something worse. But if you take the revenge, then it'll just be what you did. But God has something worse usually planned for people. So it's actually, in a way, you're going easier on them. So you shouldn't, if you really hate that person. But God will, you know, God does punish people too. I mean, but it's to help you learn, you know. It's not for no reason. It's to help you learn. And she's not learning. She's been given so many chances, and it's like, you know, and I think that's why God's letting it go on so long, because then she'll realize how long she did this. It's bad. It's not good. And I wonder if it'll be that someone will do it to her, or if it'll be something that we can't even think of. It could be, but
it's going to be worse than what she's doing to me, because that's how these things work. Like you get back worse than you give.
Well, and I think
it's like times 3. Whatever you give comes back to you times 3, Keri.
Well, you will probably get to see it too, because a lot of times, not always, but I know for a lot of people, they do get to see it in the end. You know, they get to see what the fallout was. I know I've screwed over people in my life, and they got to see what how I suffered, and I definitely did. So, so there's that.
You know, I was thinking earlier today, I'm like, and I was thinking about this in general with like conservative influencers who are buying into this bullshit. I'm like, it is actually not that hard to just do the right thing. It's really not that hard. It's not that hard to tell the truth. It's not that hard to denounce people that are supporting schools who are covering up for teachers molesting students. It's not that hard to say, stop being a woke asshole. Like, none of these things are actually that hard, but yet people make them, like, people act like they're just, I couldn't possibly do that. It's like, no. And honestly, like, it makes life so much easier and simple when you just tell the truth. Because then you don't have to remember every lie that you told. Like, you know, I've had people say, like, you know, that one of the reasons that they're like kind of still on my team is that I have been incredibly consistent about this from the beginning. And the reason that I've been so consistent is because I have told the truth. Like, I don't need to make up a lie. I don't need to doctor evidence like what they do. I said, like, here's what happened. And I don't always tell like the whole story, because, you know, oftentimes there's no reason to tell every nuance of the story. Like, it just is what it is. But like, I have told the truth and they have not, and it's going to bite them in the ass.
Right. When I think for me, I maybe am somewhat psychic, because I can see.
Oh, yeah, I think you are. Yeah.
I can see through the internet lens really well, because I've gotten to know a lot of people online, and even through YouTube. I've had an experience with another YouTuber, and I met him, and everything I knew about him and everything that I saw before I met him in person, I saw through the internet. So I was not surprised by him at all in person. And so it's like, I feel like with me, I can usually read into things pretty well. So like in certain dramas you've been in, for example, I can see through the lens, and I can see like, this is probably what's going on. It's probably like this and this and this. And like, I'll say, for example, with a certain person, I can tell that said person is not your type. So it's very unbelievable. But maybe other people wouldn't be able to see that. But I see like who you're married to. I've seen who you've dated before. Like, you've shown some, and it's not, this said person is not your type at all.
Type. Not my type at all. Not a type that I would pine after forever and ever and ever. That's not real.
So I'm like, I think it's pretty obvious that you know, and then also said person's story has shifted quite a bit. And I'll never forget the famous yoga retreat.
Oh yeah, I was going to a yoga retreat in London.
The capital of yoga, you know?
Yeah.
Just saying.
That was the fucking best. That was amazing. Like a fucking yoga retreat. Whatever,
that was so
dude.
stupid. I couldn't believe it.
Oh god.
The ends justify the means, and it's okay for you to lie to this person or backstab this person or hurt
I
them or
wholly
cheat
disagree
them.
with this, actually. I
You
think that
Oh,
yeah, I think that you can. So based on the available evidence that we have, of course, you know, it's pretty understood about evolution and whatnot. So for me, I think, well, it makes sense that we've evolved to be social creatures, because that is what, technically speaking, propagates the species
look
at a
at
very
Keri.
like,
She's
primal
not
level.
happy that he's not buying
And
into
then
this. Look
if
at her
you
face.
look across the board,
Ugh.
there is like everything that is alive wants to remain alive. Virtually everything. Of course, there's going to be people that are suicidal or something like that, but in virtually every instance, life wants to remain and is. It wants to remain life. I don't want to die. And I know that I could go over to virtually anybody and ask them, and they would say, I don't want to die either. And I know if I could talk to the tiny bacteria on everything, it too would not want to die. But yet we can, and with that, we can then gauge a moral foundation, because life wants to remain and is. We ought to act in a way to continue life. Therefore, and from there, we can then decide ourselves, what is the best way forward to better human life and human well-being? What is the best way that we can do this? Because that, in my opinion, is actually better, because it gives you an actual foundation that you've come to on a rational basis. So like
Oh,
a
yeah,
good,
we definitely disagree.
but like a
Okay,
good
keep going.
example is like if you have two. This is not my example, okay? But I heard this the other day and it was a great one. If you have two kids and you take them to the restaurant and they both are misbehaving, and then you have a talk with them when you get home. The one kid, you say, hey, next time you misbehave, or next time you act nicely, I'm going to give you a reward. I'm going to reward you. Like, here's a treat or something. Sort of supposed to be analogous to like you go to heaven if you continue to follow God. And then the other child is told, hey, when you act inappropriately at the restaurant, you are disturbing other people around you. You're hurting their time and energy because they are paying to have a meal at this restaurant. And think about it. You probably wouldn't want to experience that from your end. You don't want people, messing around and screaming and being loud while you try to enjoy your food. So if you take them back to the restaurant and they both are well behaved, well, which one is more moral? They both did the moral thing, but the one child actually has the rationale for why that morality makes sense and why it should be taken into account. Whereas the other one, as soon as that reward is gone, well, they have no incentive to be moral anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hear what you're saying. I think I do. The reward, though, it's not like I don't know. It's not like some Wonderland where there's lollipops and unicorns. It's not like you're going to be showered with gold. Although I do think that God will bless you if you're trying to walk the walk, right? But I think the reward is just living under His smile. I know that sounds cheesy. I know I sound cheesy.
No,
my point is, I don't want, in that moment where I did not want to disappoint God. That was unbearable to me.
Right, but don't you think it would be? I understand, but I feel like a better approach would have been, let's see. First of all, we all live in a society, okay? Joker face, and I see people in chat again saying like, but why would you even want to care about other people then without a God? I don't need a God to care about other people, because I recognize that for society to function, when people care about each other, that leads to a better world, which in turn benefits me. So if I were to crash my car and break up the ceiling on the car wash, then lying about that is going to negatively impact me down the road in multiple ways. One, I could get fired from my job. Two, I could face repercussions from the car wash location. Three, if you are repeatedly lying and you become known almost as a serial liar, that is going to negatively impact your ability to successfully navigate the world. All the things that would hurt me, but I also recognize that by bettering other people, by bettering their
well-being.
So
there isn't an actual verse that says you'll be surprised, but it is inferred, basically. So a lot of sermons have inferred that, because Jesus basically said that there will be tax collectors and prostitutes in heaven as well. And they were like, what? So it's kind of inferred. So
I mean, hey, I believe everyone goes to heaven. So I absolutely agree that people who believe that there's a hell will be surprised at some of the people that are in heaven.
Well, and then the idea is, it's the whole thing is, it's like God has His standard, and that's it at the end of the day. Like, and if you're a Christian, you understand that. And I just think that's why I always say, like, I try to tell people, like, do not ever presume to know who's going to hell. Do not ever say that. And don't wish it on anybody else, because, in a lot of ways, if you wish that on someone else, you may end up going yourself, So it's like, it's not a good look, and you need to be careful with that kind of stuff. So I hate it when people, like when Elijah did that, when he's like, Mormons are nice, but they're not really Christian. They're going to hell. It's like,
Oh
dude,
God.
you don't know. You don't know who's going to hell. Like, you are not God. So stop. It's just a bad look.
I feel like I need to watch his content and figure out where he's at right now because I do not like some of the people he's associating himself with. I really do not. And I'm like,
telling
please
you.
don't, Elijah. Please don't.
I'm telling you. I honestly, I've said I do not think he's a bad person, but I think he is. I do think he's having a breakdown, and I do think that he is sort of impressionable, and that the people he's around are bad. That's what
I
I'll say.
agree.
So he's taking on their qualities. So that's how I feel.
Oh gosh. All right. Let's wrap this up.
That in turn, in a roundabout way, benefits me.
So I think that in theory, I think this all sounds good. My question, and the reason this came up for me, is knowing someone who sort of had similar opinions or beliefs, who was able to do things that I couldn't understand that they could sleep with, that they could sleep at night, that they could live with themselves having done those things. And I'm talking about a person who sees themselves as ethical and based in reason and based in, like you're saying, making the right decision. Their morality came from a place of reason and rationality, and saying this benefits me in the long run to behave in this way and not to hurt people, right?
Keri, I don't know how you can live with yourself at night. I don't know how you can live with yourself at night. So this is not exclusive to just you, dude.
She doesn't humanize you. That's how. She doesn't see you as a human.
That's
And
very
the thing
true.
is, like, when I absolutely hated somebody and I read and I counseled, I did the whole shebang, Sharu. But I still recognized his humanity, and I was conflicted, at least, where I was like, I see his humanity, but I fucking hate his guts, right? And sometimes that can happen, and it's like I had a really hard time reconciling those things. And maybe she's having a similar experience because she's been around you. She's seen some of the things you've been through or whatever. You weren't around each other very much, but
No.
it's like I was actually close with the person, so it was different. But I think with her and you, she doesn't see your humanity at all. She doesn't acknowledge it, and that's how she deals with it. I would say, but at the end of the day, like, you're still a human being. Like, it's still wrong what she does. It is wrong. It's wrong.
It is.
But being able and willing to hurt people, I couldn't understand it until I realized they've somehow reasoned it out and rationalized it. And because there's no higher thing that
talking
says
about
it
me?
does not matter if you think this is fair or just. As a human, you don't do XYZ to people. There was nothing higher for that person to hold themselves to. And so
Is she?
that, I use this example I use with myself.
She might be talking about me.
I should put it on
Wait,
myself
can you
first,
go
right?
back a little bit?
I think without God,
Yeah.
I would definitely make these little concessions here and there, but it's like, it's okay. I had people and willing to hurt people.
Yeah.
I couldn't that they could sleep at night, that they could live with themselves having done those things. And I'm talking about a person who sees themselves as ethical and based in reason and based in, like you're saying, making the right decision. Their morality came from a place of reason and rationality, and saying this benefits me in the long run to behave in this way and not to hurt people, right? But being able and willing to hurt people, I couldn't understand it until I realized they've
One of the things that the medium told me last night that my grandmother was saying to me is, like, my grandmother was like, I'm so proud of you. You're so smart. You're so strong. You have to be a strong woman to be in my family. Don't worry too much about being kind. That's overrated.
Wow. Well, I seem to remember that I've told you sometimes that you've been too nice with certain people, but I'm just saying I'm pretty mean sometimes. I know it's bad, but
you were trying to be. I saw a video of you today where, like, you were talking about how your stream was unhinged and you were being like such a bitch in it.
I wasn't necessarily a bitch in that stream.
You were like
oh no, I was just I said too much. Like, okay, you want to get the tea? One of the things I said in that stream, this is so bad, is I said, I was like, if you're a guy and you look like you can beat me up, then you're hot. That's the kind of things that I said. It was too much. That was too much. But now it's out there, but that's okay. I'm just saying it's that kind of thing. So it wasn't like, it wasn't, I was having a huge bitch re-attack. It was more like I was just saying weird things, and it was a Gen Z bad influence. That's what it was. So,
All right.
somehow reasoned it out and rationalized it. And because there's no higher thing that says it does not matter if you think this is fair or just as a human, you don't do XYZ to people. There was nothing higher for that person to hold themselves to. And so I can see that, I used the first example I used was myself.
she might be
and
talking about you.
I on myself first,
I'm
right?
gonna fucking clip
I
this
think without
shit and
God,
post every single
I would
tweet
definitely
Keri's
make these
sent
little
about me in the
concessions
last
here and there, but
week.
it's like, it's okay. I had a friend yesterday or 2 days ago say, they encouraged me to tell a white lie about something silly and trivial and unimportant because it was easier.
Keri,
Like,
you
kind of
lie
lies
all the
people do when they
time.
get out of a commitment, even, right? Like, I can't because this thing came up that blah blah blah. I can't even
Yeah,
do that
she does
anymore.
lie.
You
I'm not saying that
lie
because I'm
all
a
the
pure
time,
person.
Keri.
I'm not. I used to be able to do those kind of things, but now it's sort of like I truly believe that I'm supposed to live the way that God's telling me to. Then I can't do that. I have a friend who he's always like, if your wife asks, does this dress make me look fat? You're not supposed to tell the truth. I'm like, yes, you are.
Yeah,
You are
exactly.
supposed to tell the truth because she needs to know that she can trust you. And actually, this fits what you're saying. Anyway, without a belief in God, we're sort of arriving at similar conclusions because you're saying, no, it's better for you as the husband to tell the truth so she knows she can trust what you say.
Right.
If she looks fat in that dress, tell her. If she doesn't, tell her so she knows that you're someone she can come to for a real opinion.
But don't you think that people could also do bad things as Christians? Like, how many
Oh,
times have we
yeah.
seen people say, "Oh, well, yeah, I molested this person, or I had this kind of porn on my
Well,
computer."
Keri
but
does
I
a
know
lot
that
of
God
bad
forgave
things
me,
as a
so I
Christian.
didn't feel
So
like really very guilty anymore
It's
because
true.
God
I've
has
done
forgiven me.
bad things
I'm
as a
Oh,
Christian,
washed of my
to be
absolutely.
sins.
honest.
I
So
absolutely agree with you. I think that happens all the time. And I think I don't know
does
yet what to make of
happen.
those people. I think maybe it's a very shallow kind of faith. Someone like Josh Duggar, he never left his belief system. He grew up in it. He never came to it consciously after a lot of thought and like figuring out, what do I believe about these things? I don't know. I'm not one to judge, but I don't know if he's ever had. If I were to try to have a conversation with him like I'm having with you, first of all, I don't think that he would be a sincere person, and I don't know if I could pull
He's
out of him what
probably
was that
just
experience like when he was
psychotic,
experiencing God, or
you
if he would just repeat things. So a lot of people don't live
Duggar, I
consciously,
mean.
and that's Christians, non-Christians.
Well, she just said he's psychotic and he just repeats things. So I bet you that was actually talking about me earlier. But like, does Keri think that Hunter is being sincere?
I think she probably does, but
Oh
I'm saying
my
like she's
God,
talking about
Keri.
Duggar or whatever.
Yeah.
And how he did stuff with kids. Like, I think he's just psychotic. I don't think it's that he's atheist or Christian. It's just he's nuts, and evil exists. So that's how I see it anyways. But no, I don't know. Did she? I don't think she said you were psychotic. She said she kind of has skirted around you a couple times.
No, she's called me psychotic. She's called me psychotic. She's called me a sociopath. She's called me like not necessarily on the stream, but
okay.
she absolutely believes I'm psychotic. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like,
but that's even what you just said. Like, I want to live a way according to God or what God wants. Like, we don't have a consensus on what God wants or what God has even said. All we really have is people saying that God told them to do this, or
but
the
you
Bible, I
figured
guess,
out
talk
for
about that
yourself,
too, is
Hunter.
just full of a lot of
Yeah,
flaws and errors and inconsistencies. We don't need to go down that path.
That's true.
The thing is,
Hey,
it's just that it just seems as if there's no consensus on what God actually wants. This is why we have people that say, no, being gay is bad because it's a sin against God. Which
because
is what
everyone comes to God in their own way, Hunter.
Now you're saying that
Right.
somebody existing the way that they
too.
are is a sin, even though there's no demonstrable harm. So what makes it a sin then? Why would God call this a sin if it doesn't lead to something bad in our life?
Maybe he didn't.
I have started to think, and I'm still thinking this through, but I've started to think that some of the
he trusts too much in authority.
Things that God sets up to say, don't do these things.
It's too
well,
much.
he's young. He's young. It's a young.
I know,
thing.
but he needs to learn to think for himself.
Like an authoritarian parent, right? You can't do this. Why? Another example might be no sex before marriage. Well, if there's no one it's hurting, then why not? Right? Now I'm starting to think that what if God is just a loving father who's telling you these are the ways I'm giving you these guidelines because I think you're going to have the best. You're going to live in the best way possible and have the best life if you follow them.
But you're not going to live a good life if you are gay and are unable to live your life fulfillingly as having a partner or getting married. You're not going to live the best life.
I don't know because that's not something I struggle with. But I always cut off
a good
people who say that they.
But why would anyone struggle with being gay?
People who say,
like, why would it?
I have homosexual desires,
I guess that's maybe a nitpicky point.
Stopped engaging in it, right? Or like Milo now says he doesn't have gay sex.
He's
right?
ex-gay.
Ex-gay. I've always been like, that's BS. That's what I used to think.
Yeah,
I'm at a place
that's
now where
total
I haven't listened to them
nonsense.
yet, but I want to listen to some of those stories. And
If you don't know, then just don't comment. I like what Keri did there. Shouldn't need to comment.
Dating, and I was recently Christian. It was like, but why should I swear it off? I don't get it. Like it's not like hurting anyone.
I think there's a very good rational reason that doesn't involve God at all. Well, there's multiple things. Is one, by having multiple partners, on a very practical sense, you open yourself up to risks in regards to STDs, at least for men who are sleeping around, you raise the risk of possibly getting somebody pregnant without planning on that. So there are risks there. It also could be argued that it does do a type of harm because of one, there are statistics showing that people who have slept with other people before their marriage have a higher likelihood of divorcing. So it has the potential to hurt your future. And there's also evidence that when you have sex with, at least with a woman, there are certain hormones that are released in her brain.
Oxytocin,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Bonding.
yeah, that make her feel more connected to you, and just sort of treating that as if it's nothing but like just like get your quick fix kind of thing is at the expense of her well-being in many ways. So I think that you could really provide actually a very rational reason as to
I
why
think so too.
sex without marriage isn't a great idea.
I think so too in that case, and I wonder if that's the case for every rule or boundary that God set. I don't know.
Not
yet.
for being
I'm
gay.
still-
That's why I've had that conversation many times. I ask everybody, why is it a
haven't yet.
sin?
I don't know. I had a
I've
metric
never had an
fuck
answer
ton
yet.
of sex before I was married, and it turned out fine.
I will say, I know I've taken up a lot of your
I
time.
think
will
it
say
depends
that
on the
really
person
talking
with
about it.
that.
And I wasn't
But
sure if I was going to. And
if
everyone
you
in
were
my chat was
Christian,
yeah, everyone's
Carlin,
wasted
you
their
would
money.
not be able
Why
to
are you doing
be,
this? I enjoyed
promiscuous.
it.
It's
I
just
appreciate you
not.
coming and hanging
You
out
know
with
what
me
I'm
and-
saying? It does
Well,
not.
thank
follow
Legal
God
valid
I
question
wasn't
that not
raised a
every,
Christian.
I'm
legal
just
atheist
saying.
is
Well, if you
atheist or
yourself
whatever.
chose it, like you'd have to give that up, okay?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm a whore now or anything.
I know, but I'm
I
just
just had like a
saying.
lot of sex in college, like, and I'm not sorry about it.
Well,
Sorry,
you're not
sorry, not
Christian,
sorry.
so it is what it is. But I would
God.
say that that is not allowed in Christianity, for example. But I would say that I think there are some people that do fine when they get married after having sex with different people. I think there are some people where they aren't as attached either. And I think it's up to you to figure out where you stand and don't listen to anyone else. Like if you don't believe in premarital sex, then don't have it. Or if you don't believe in being a hoe, then don't be one. But if you really don't care, then I guess go ham, but be safe and don't.
No, I agree with that. Like I know couples who are polyamorous that are perfectly happy in their throuple relationship, and they like it works out for them. I'm like, that's great. I would never do that, but like that's awesome.
You have to take responsibility over your sex, what you do sexually, because you're the one that has to live with it. Nobody else has to live with it. You do. So if you don't like that stuff, then don't do it. And I feel like a lot of people in this society now, they aren't naturally promiscuous, but they choose to force themselves to live up to society. And that's not right either.
And no, and I agree with that. Like the other, like that's the other part of this is like you also don't have to have sex with everyone and their mother if you don't want to. Like sex should be something that's fun. It should be something that's enjoyable. It should be something that's consensual that you want to do, that in an ideal world you're excited to do. Right.
And I think too, there's a genetic component to certain things. Some people are more genetically inclined to sleep around a lot before they get married. Some people are genetically inclined not to. And you have to just know yourself. I mean, it's just a self-responsibility. If it's killing you to do it, then why are you doing it? But otherwise, like I said, stay safe. Don't put yourself in compromising situations and avoid STD. Like we know all these things, right?
Yeah.
Avoid unplanned pregnancy, right? But I've seen it with different people in my life too. Some people are very happy doing that and they get married and they're fine, but some people are not happy doing it and they do struggle. And it's up to you. You need to be true to you. Be true to yourself always, and you'll be fine.
Yep.
So I mean, obviously you're fine, Carlin. You know what I mean? So
I have a perfectly happy marriage of almost 11 years. And so I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to take it,
Right. It's different for everybody. He doesn't acknowledge that. I think Hunter cannot acknowledge that a lot of things are different for everybody. And sex is definitely one of those things where it's different.
Yep.
People are into different things, for example.
Different people are different.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think they all are, but yeah, you definitely I don't know, you encouraged me about the state of conversation and people being able to have it and actually listen to one another and try to figure out what the other person's saying instead of just putting on them
Hunter
what you
didn't do that
want
with
it to
you,
be that they're
Keri.
saying,
He
right?
didn't do that with you at all.
I really appreciate this combo too. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of debates that I do that are nothing like this. They are incredibly hostile. The person is throwing insults. I'm throwing insults, and it's just like massive train wreck. So it's really refreshing to have
Do you
conversations.
enjoy those?
This kind of conversation? Yeah, absolutely.
No, hostile ones. Do you like those?
Yes, those are my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Really?
I'm weird.
Awful.
I'm weird like that. I like being in the hostile environment.
Different
They're
people
throwing
like
insults. I
different
like to think how
things,
much faster I
Keri.
can come up with a better roast. It's just, I don't know.
Did you ever do comedy, stand-up comedy?
No. Oh no, not at all.
Anyway, okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm not going to keep you from your family any longer. Thank you guys who were hanging out in chat tonight. I didn't get to read a lot of it tonight. I'm sorry. I was a lot more focused in this conversation than I am on our Monday, Friday live shows. I'll see you guys tomorrow for a coffee break. And Hunter, where can people find you online if they want to check out more of your videos?
Yeah, if people want to show up, they can go right over to my YouTube channel just by typing in Hunter Avallone.
And you'll
I'm
be
gonna actually
blocked
staying
if you
around
say
for every
anything
live
he
I
doesn't
deliver
like.
shortly.
Now he really is
True.
like that.
If anybody wants to
True.
come over here to
True.
this stream, I guess, are you ending your stream or are you?
I'm ending mine. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
And also, I'm going to watch some true crime.
Hell yeah.
probably. I did want to say thank you, Matt Deckard, real quick. I'm sorry I forgot these. Gave a super chat and said, I watch you both. To the pain. And Ian So Forth gave me 10 lira and said, woke is the worst the left got get called, huh? I've heard worse thrown around without cause. I know that's not lira, Hunter. It's a joke.
I assume so, yeah.
Okay. And this will, thank you. $2 says, we know the arguments, but what are the solutions? I think that's an old super chat from when we were talking about
Systemic racism, maybe.
Maybe, or trans stuff.
The answer to the systemic racism thing would mainly be to just start with proper investing into those communities. I didn't even get a chance to shout out Trump because Trump did something really cool with that, with the opportunity zones. They unfortunately didn't work the way that they could have, but he definitely had the right idea. And I always bring that up when I'm talking to conservatives because this is something Trump did that was totally a good idea.
It was a very good idea.
A lot of things.
He did a few things. So I was one of those people that when he won in 2016,
you gotta support people, man.
And then I ended up.
We gotta support people who do good things.
Well, I was changing.
True story. Keri blocked bot for posting a picture of Jesus.
But also,
true story. True story.
In doing that, I started to try to look at everything.
I saw that.
Right.
And I realized
she probably thought he was me when he's not me, Keri. Not me.
I thought they were my opinions until
Sorry.
I started questioning everything. And it's like, how did I arrive at this conclusion? I had opinions about writers and podcasters and public figures and stuff that I had never taken the time. I had never listened to a Trump speech, for example. And
well,
so
of course,
it's
my fault. She thinks you're me.
Things that I agreed with, and I came to realize, in my opinion, by the time we got to the election between him and Biden, I was like, well, he's the more liberal.
Keri, I thought you had to go pee. Jesus Christ, I want to go to bed.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I was going to leave your stream.
No, I totally
GTFO,
Keri. I feel like I've sort of had the similar sort of thought process, but
I just want to hear
what
Hunter
Hunter
says about it.
I know. I want to see too.
Yeah, me too. You guys go jump on Hunter's stream if you want to hang out more.
Or if anybody wants to join the Discord and debate me, that too is open. So.
He loves that. Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, that was nice. That was a really refreshing combo. I knew it was going to be more like that, and I'm glad it was. All right, let's start. Let's read some super chats, and we're gonna be.
Oh wow,
he
didn't say anything.
Wow.
No, I know.
You know what though? I feel like she DM'd him and probably talked shit about you to him, so it probably got her in his good graces.
Probably did.
That's what I believe.
They bonded over a shared hatred of us, Alex. We brought Keri and Hunter together. They were able to have a conversation where no one yelled or name called.
I think you're kind of right though too. I think they're both woke, so it's like I'm not woke.
2 peas in a pod. 2 peas in a pod. They go together like peanut butter and jelly.
I clash really bad, but also too, I do think Hunter is homophobic, so there is that layer to the conversation too.
Only because he won't admit to himself that he wants dick.
Which that's usually how it is.
Yeah. Which I mean, he might legitimately like women too. You can actually like both. It's it's allowed.
Totally.
You can do whatever you want to do. All right, Alex. Well, closing thoughts on our stream tonight. Not as eventful as we were hoping, but I'm glad that we watched it. I feel like it was a good use of our stream.
Yeah, I think that Keri only like skirted around you once, but there was that moment for sure.
Oh, you could tell too with the look in her eyes. She had started to get crazy eyes. She was like,
yeah, and so there was that one moment, but that's usually how she is. She does that little thing like when she went on You Are Here, she had that moment with Adam, and they were like, where she was like, no, and then Adam's like, I know who you're talking about. And she's like, and they like laughed, and it was really cringe. So she still will do it, but she'll never blatantly do it because she's sorry, I almost said something really mean, but she doesn't have the guts, I'll say, to do it.
She doesn't have the balls.
Sure. But I will say, I think she did pretty good, especially with the trans thing. I think she did pretty good with that. And I still think I agree with you. She needs to write a book, but that's probably the conclusion we'll always come to because she's very brilliant with certain things.
She really is. Keri needs to do something more productive with her time that is not attacking me. She needs to actually focus on helping people in the real world and telling her story and helping turn more people from the left. Keri is very good at this. She should do more of it. I would be okay with that. I would not be upset at all.
Right. And I also think too that I walked so Keri could run. I think that Hunter knew how bad he looked, and so he made an effort not to be like that. So you're welcome.
I think that is a very good observation, and I agree with that. He was so atrocious on that stream with you. It
Yes.
was so bad. But also like Keri came to him kind of more with like hat in hand, whereas like he wanted to. I mean, we did do a Sassy Saturday saying that he got bent over and fucked like a bitch. So like, let's.
You said that. I didn't necessarily say that.
You agreed.
Well, I did agree. But no, I didn't say it. And he's just mad that I said I don't think he did that great. And I don't even like John. Like,
No,
it's
I mean,
not personal, you know?
So who do we think won in that conversation?
I feel like it's probably, in my opinion, it's, I think barely Keri, but just because he had that cringe moment where he was Googling things and had no idea what he was even talking about. That was really bad.
I would have agreed with that up until the point where they started talking about religion. Keri should not have brought up that topic because that was like an unwinnable topic. There was nothing to be gained
That's
there.
true.
She was just trying to convert him. And like, so I was completely on like, Keri
That's
was kind of like the winner. Like, I obviously agree with more of her points, but then she brought up religion, which is a purely subjective thing. I'm sorry, it is. It's not an objective reality. It's a subjective reality. And it became a wash for me at that point. And Hunter was like visibly annoyed when she brought up religion and was like trying to have the conversion conversation with him.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think in the end it was a bit of a draw. Because also too, like, her theology is not all there. It just isn't. And it's not
She's
like
working it out.
she could probably bitch at me because I don't view homosexuality as a sin.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't know that it's not dangerous to pray to God. Like, that's very foundational. You know what I mean? Like, the gay issue is like a fringe of an issue. Like, that would only affect 2% of the population. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But every Christian prays, or everybody who believes in God prays, right? So it can even go beyond that. So that's so foundational, and she misses that. But we know how I feel about her church, so I'm not a fan of it.
It's a cult.
But I do think she'll get to the truth eventually, but I do think that it's not a good situation. And I think in some ways she may take it out on you. You know, she may feel that she has to live up to certain standards that are unreasonable. And so she takes it out on you. And you're like her vent, you know.
Whatevs. I've got other shit to do. I actually wrote a book, unlike Keri. So Keri can run her mouth about whatever she wants on Twitter, and it'll all get added to the police report that has been filed on her. And if we ever get to the defamation lawsuit point, then we will get there, and it is what it is. It's entirely of her control, man. She could stop this at any time if she just shut her fucking mouth about me and focused on things that actually mattered.
I agree.
All right. Well, another successful Sassy Saturday, Alex. Thank you for joining the stream. Guys, please mount that like button on your way out the door. And please, of course, make sure you subscribe to Alex's channel. It is both pinned to the top of the chat and is in the description. Alex, anything else to say for tonight?
I just want to say that we won't be doing it next week because I'm going to Cali.
Alex is having the nerve to take a trip.
I'm going to California to convert to communism. So I'm just kidding. So if you want to see my journey into the woke left, it'll be on my channel. No, but I mean, I am going to vlog it, but I'm not actually becoming communist, obviously. But we won't be doing Sassy Saturday next week, or at least I won't be. But
we'll be back though.
Yeah, we'll be back. And when we come back, we might be able to do it a little earlier again. So we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex, again. It was fun, and have a good trip next week. And yeah, guys, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.